The two clasped their fists and performed an old-fashioned salute. "I was just passing by and lent a hand," Mr. Lion said, turning his head. "What are your names?" "I am Hong." "I am Lei Shen." Both had felt the oppressive power radiating from Mr. Lion a moment before, but now they showed neither fear nor false pride. These were Hong and Lei Shen, the future strongest men on Earth, later to be counted among the few true gods and lawmasters in the universe. As ordinary Earthlings, their bodies were unremarkable compared with the cosmos, but their spiritual realms were so profound even true gods would bow in respect. Mr. Lion admired them, and for the first time thought he might learn from them. "Big brother, may I ask? Are you Chinese?" Lei Shen asked in Chinese, curiosity brightening his face like a bear watching a bird. "Chinese? Of course I am. Just not from this China, from another one." Lion's words cut off mid-sentence as an automatic censorship snapped in. He blinked, surprised, then he realized. The source would never permit anyone to reveal information from outside the world to the universe see. It was already giving him leniency. True gods who tried that would be struck by thunderous warnings. Two truncated replies had left Hong and Lei Shen baffled. Mr. Lion thought quickly and for once lied. "I was a mountain wild man, never left the peaks as a child. After the virus outbreak, I awakened a talent and found an ancient inheritance, so I sequestered myself for a few years. When I came out, my strength was acceptable, and I dealt with some monsters along the way." Lei Shen brightened. "Big brother is awesome. What is your family name, big brother?" "Liang. So it's Brother Liang." Lei Shen clapped. "Brother Ang, your coming out of seclusion has saved all humanity." A smile broke Hong's stern face. "Mr. Liang, thank you for everything. How about we go?" "What are you saying?" Lei Shen kicked Hong. "Why Mr. Liang? Brother Ang saved us. You should call him brother." Hong blinked, then changed his tone. Brother Ang, why don't you come with us and have some tea first?" Their attitudes were simple and warm, one guileless, the other all forgiving. Though by appearance they were at least a decade or two older than Mr. Lion, calling him Brother Ang felt natural. Together they were like cartoon bears come to life. Mr. Lion had to laugh. "All right, lead the way. I want to borrow a few things." "What things?" "Ask and it's yours, Brother Ang. I'll even fetch the head of that giant octopus in the sea." Lei Shen raved. The octopus was a king-class sea monster. He wouldn't be able to take it now, but the praise was genuine. "I'd like to borrow your secret manuals and ancient texts. Would that be possible?" Mr. Lion asked. Earth had not yet recovered from the great cataclysm. Factions hoarded knowledge and shared little. Lei Shen hesitated briefly, then patted his chest. "No problem. My collection and the manuals I invented. Brother Ang, you can read everything." Hong nodded as well. The dozen onlookers exchanged glances and pretended not to notice. "Lead the way," Mr. Lion said. When Mr. Lion said borrow, he meant it. On the first day he read through all of Lei Shen's and Hong's collections. He mastered their exertion methods and even helped innovate them. In the Starry Sky world, two special combat systems existed, exertion and amplitude. Exertion was a method of harnessing force, amplifying the effect of a given unit of exertion. Its maximum was 100-fold. Amplitude multiplied the body's exerted force. Its limit was likewise 100-fold. Combined, they could produce 10,000-fold output. 100-fold exertion was a prerequisite for ascending to immortality. 10,000-fold exertion amplitude was the standard for most lawmasters. Lei Shen and Hong were prodigies. With no inheritance guiding them, they had created 2-fold and 3-fold exertion techniques, respectively, within 3 years of beginning their transcendence paths. Lei Shen's focused on the saber, Hong's on the spear. They willingly handed their painstakingly written manuals to Mr. Lion. He grasped them in a minute, and 10 minutes later had deduced extensions that reached 15-fold exertion. His advantage from being of a higher realm let him run far ahead in technical refinement. He stopped there, though. The two friends' methods had taken a wrong turn from the outset. In the Starry Sky world, exertion amplitude should enhance strength, speed, and defense, a comprehensive multiplication. But Hong and Lei Shen's techniques only increased attack power. Seeing their surprise, Mr. Lion turned to movement techniques instead. Micro-level adjustments, precise, elegant motions. His mobility and control sharpened rapidly. Mastery over his own force became more refined. Then he began reading the classics, the Analects, the Tao Te Ching, the Spring and Autumn Annals. Those texts were no different from any world's ancient writings, yet read now they cleansed him. He felt the source will's influence on his soul. The earth here had been transformed long ago by an existence akin to a universe god. Humans born on this planet had unusually high spiritual aptitude. Mr. Lion's soul had been touched likewise. As he recited the classics, his mind felt like a stubborn stone struck by steady drops of water. Each drop polished it until it grew clearer and purer. He read for 3 days straight. When he stepped out, Hong exclaimed, "Return to simplicity, truly finding your nature." "Brother Ang, you reached the first stage of the state of mind in 3 days," Lei Shen added. Mr. Lion smiled. "There's no neat ranking. With the state of mind, what matters is what aligns with your inner self. Different paths simply describe how far each of us has walked." Hong was stunned. His gaze shifted, and he stood rooted, lost in thought. Lei Shen, beside him, was astonished. "Brother Ang, teach me too. Help me comprehend something. Get lost. Just be yourself. That's the best path. What more is there to comprehend?" Mr. Lion teased and gave him a playful kick. But Lei Shen was suddenly seized by insight. He froze and stood there, comprehending on the spot. Mr. Lion blinked. He had never seen an epiphany occur so visibly before. Hours later, both men recovered almost simultaneously. One now radiated a vast, all-encompassing tolerance. The other had become simpler, rougher, like a man of pure innocence. These were the visible signs of advancement. The third stage's all-encompassing tolerance and the second stage's pure innocence. Hong was the first to kneel, slamming one knee to the ground. "Brother Ang, for teaching me exertion techniques and guiding my mind, I will never forget your grace." Lei Shen, eyes wide, shoved Hong aside and fell to his knees with a thud. He prostrated himself, voice solemn. "Master, thank you for your teachings." Hong stared, thought for 3 seconds, then also dropped into full prostration. "Please accept me as your disciple, Master Ang." Mr. Lion's face darkened. "What are you doing? I only said a few things. Stand up." Lei Shen was deadly serious. "Master, I am sincere. I wish to be your disciple, not just because of gratitude, but because I want to grow stronger by following you." Hong echoed him, earnest. "Me too. If Master leaves monsters for us to train on, I want to be strong enough to protect humanity." Mr. Lion hesitated. In the starry sky world, powerhouses lived for extraordinarily long spans. Master-disciple bonds often became closer than family. Hong and Lei Shen's talents were undeniable. Even with the 9th grade Earthling bloodline, slow cultivation, and difficulty comprehending cosmic laws, they were on course to become titanic beings. If they ever found hosts fit for transmigration, Mr. Lion could not imagine the heights they would reach. Lion finally agreed to take Lei Shen and the others as his disciples, although he could only stay 3 more months. Cultivators in the starry sky world didn't have only one teacher. After he left, Hong and Lei Shen could still go into the universe to seek stronger masters. What Lion could teach in this short time was mainly how to advance in cultivation and his understanding of the starry sky world. After the two of them poured tea, bowed in the ancient Huaxia way, and formally accepted him as their teacher, he began explaining how to break through to the planetary level, domains, laws, power amplification, the whole framework. With a clear path, Lei Shen and Hong immediately began closed-door cultivation toward their breakthroughs. It would take at least 2 or 3 days. Lion couldn't hang around to watch. He gave the guards strict orders to be on alert, then flew out of Base City. "There are a lot of small ruins on Earth," he muttered. "Mostly meteorite star leftovers. I'll sweep a few first." He picked a target in South America, ruins that might yield a battlesuit and psychic cultivation techniques, and paused before he left to connect to the source will. "Will boss, do you have any cultivation inheritance? Give me one," he called. The source will, by now used to Lion's pestering, replied tersely, "Not enough time, unable to exchange." Lion launched into his most persuasive performance, using the Chan technique he'd learned from Lei Shen. He entangled his words like a beguiling old retainer. "Don't say that. Inheritances are just information. There's no loss. Besides, I'm not taking it for myself. I want it for you." "For me?" The source will sounded surprised for the first time. "Yes, more friends, more paths. I'd be paving a path for you. If you give me an inheritance now, you're not helping me. You're helping yourself. You've helped me so much already. We're friends. Why not let me become a way for you? My friend is in danger. I want to be a true god to find the truth for you. From now on, I'll be your path. The more help you give me, the wider and easier the path becomes. He poured on metaphor and flattery until the source will fell silent. Lion waited, then shook his head. Looks like attempt number 4 failed. In truth, he'd been lobbying the world consciousness since the first day he'd arrived on Earth. This was the 4th day and the 4th attempt. The results were still underwhelming. When he returned to Marvel, Lion decided he would switch his major to negotiation. He needed to master persuasion fully, so the next world consciousness he met would be utterly disoriented by him. Let's go find the ruins in the Amazon, he said, and flew off. Half a day later, Lion, now clad in a pitch-black suit and having mastered the basic psychic techniques, rushed out of the ruin and looked up. The sky, which should have been a boundless blue, was dominated by a dazzling sun-like disk. Crimson-white light streamed down from beyond the starry sky in colossal pillars. Hundreds of fighter jets were already leaving the atmosphere, heading straight for the source. Lion activated supervision and traced the light. It came from a fortress on the moon, an enormous construct, 1,000 kilometers tall, its base embedded deep in the surface as if hurled down from space. The white light poured from its summit. Billions of cosmic rays capable of shredding space hung and swirled around the structure. It was the focal point of everything. Even starlight bent and was distorted there, forced to skirt an indestructible outer shell. The moon itself looked like a mirage beneath that distortion. He frowned. This fortress wasn't in the original accounts. Then he realized. The inheritance the Source Will's been quiet about, it's arrived. Covering his body with his biofield, Lion crossed the void between Earth and Moon in seconds. He hovered before the fortress. Most of the jets that had launched earlier lagged far behind, not a tenth of the way there. As Lion appeared, the crimson-white light at the fortress top swept over him and penetrated every cell. An ancient, solemn voice intoned, "Cosmic level, gene multiplier X100, brain domain width 100%, granting core inheritance assessment qualification." The light turned into a bridge and pulled him upward. Lion offered no resistance and was drawn into the fortress. After a blinding flash, he opened his eyes and found himself in a space that looked like a starry sky of the universe, an immense darkness studded with star-like points. Stars stretched beneath his feet, above his head, to an horizon he couldn't see. The interior was immeasurably larger than the exterior. Even with supervision, its diameter exceeded 10 billion kilometers. Tentatively, he took a step. Instantly, the points of light underfoot extended lines, linking to other points. The network grew, then sprouted more connections. In a few breaths, the stars had been joined into massive dot and line diagrams, like a satellite image of constellations, then traced together with a pen. "This is a secret pattern diagram," Lion breathed. The pattern drew his mind in. Insights flooded him. And it's one that fuses light and time. He felt a wave of awe. Such a secret pattern diagram was on par with the chaos steel of the human race in the starry sky world. And here it was, laid out for him to comprehend. The Source Will had been extravagant. He almost forgot that the voice had only granted him the qualification to participate in the assessment. The ancient voice then sounded nearby. "You still know about secret pattern diagrams? Interesting." Lion snapped out of his trance and turned. Towering tens of thousands of meters high before him was a platinum-white phantom of a single-horned lizard. Each breath exhaled illusionary gas that spanned 1,000 zhang. The apparition's presence instantly called to mind the starry sky beasts, perhaps the pinnacle of special life forms in the original universe. Innate beast god. Chapter 1. Assessment. How many years has it been? I finally see a life form from the original universe again. An enormous phantom drifted toward Lion Stark. Its eyes, each the size of a skyscraper, radiated a tired sigh. How long was I buried in the original star? Nearly 100 trillion epochs, I think. Lion Stark froze at the phantom's deep exhale. Are you a life form from the previous cycle? 100 trillion epochs was nearly a whole cycle. The phantom chuckled. Life form? No, I am an intelligent program. In the late stages of the last cycle, the supreme expert, the time beast god Joe, fell. He left behind me and this fortress. After the original universe entered its cycle, the fortress was buried with the original star and has only just resurged. Little one, were you brought here by the source will? Do you have the potential to pass the assessment and inherit Joe's legacy? I must warn you, the assessment carries a risk to your life. Lion Stark nodded. Whether I succeed or fail, I have to try. A special life form with 100-fold gene potential. In a way, you and Zhao are kin. You are qualified to attempt it, the Phantom said, then peered at Lion's posture. But your foundation is weak. Show me. Throw a punch. Lion Stark adopted a stance and struck, using the flawed force exertion technique he'd managed to forge to 15-fold power. The Phantom's brows knitted. Its voice rolled like thunder. What is this? Have you never had formal training? Not yet, Lion admitted. I've been experimenting on my own. A blank slate will do, the Phantom said. I'll give you 30 days to fully master the secret manual I will give you to reach 100-fold correct force application. Fail to learn it in 30 days and there's no point continuing with the inheritance. A translucent secret manual materialized and fell at Lion's feet. The Phantom lumbered on 4 pillar-like legs and settled at a distance, closing its eyes. Lion picked up the manual, determination burning in him. Time waits for no one. I must master 100-fold force application, quickly. One day later, Lion woke the Phantom. What? You mastered 100-fold already? That quick? Throw another punch. All right, Lion struck without hesitation. The force was palpable. The Phantom turned its head and coughed lightly. Not bad, but still far beneath what I was capable of. Then let the assessment begin. You are favored by the source will, and Joe once served it, so I will not make this hard for you. The assessment will test 3 things: law comprehension, mental state, and willpower. Law comprehension is the foundation of power. Mental state and willpower are prerequisites for becoming an expert. Which shall we test first? Mental state. Lion's mental state had just advanced. A challenge would solidify it. Very well. The Phantom's voice faded as a hazy light wrapped Lion. He kept his composure and moved through trial after trial in the shrouding light. Then, 30 minutes later, the Phantom's voice cut through. You failed. You did not pass. Leave this place now. Before Lion could speak, a white beam swept him up and hurled him out of the fortress. The fortress was drawn into a black hole. The source would give him no second chance. Frustrated, Lion returned to Earth. With plans changed, he found the meteorite star spacecraft and joined them to study secret techniques. 3 months later, having left scores of manuals with Hong and Lei Shen, Lion departed for the Marvel Universe as a peak world lord. He first bid farewell to the Ancient One, then returned home to share Starry Sky World technology with Tony. Amid Tony's repeated exclamations of disbelief, Lion flew back toward the sun. He intended to become immortal, fast. He dived into the sun and stayed there for a year. Time moved as expected, until one day Tony's experiments with the Tesseract created disturbances that spread beyond their world. A spatial rift ripped open the fabric of reality, and through it strode a purple-skinned eternal titan in flowing armor, wearing an Uru gauntlet set with the 6 Infinity Stones. I am Thanos, the titan announced. I have come to return you to the embrace of the goddess Death. Mortals, you should feel honored. Thanos raised the gauntlet, preparing to wipe the field. Lion returned from the star almost instantly and blocked him. For a moment, Lion, at the peak of World Lord power, flung Thanos from Earth, but Thanos used the Infinity Stones to teleport back and obliterated Lion's body. Amid the carnage, a small spatial gate covertly snatched Lion Stark's original nucleus. Thanos never noticed. Afterwards, no one on Earth could stop him. Tony crumbled to ash, Natasha was slain, and even the Ancient One was beheaded. 10 days later, Thanos left, having murdered all life in the universe. Before the end, Ancient One had managed to catch Lion's original nucleus in a teleport and hide it. 100 days later, the original nucleus regenerated into a new body in the sun. Lion's roar tore through the star system. Thanos, he shouted, unleashing the full force of his World Lord peak power. The scarlet intensity of his gaze made the cosmos tremble. I will kill you. He did not immediately hunt down Thanos. Instead, he plunged back into the sun and remained. 100,000 years passed. When he emerged, his body shone with golden light. In his hands, he held a boundless inner universe, a microcosm 100 billion light years across, spun from his own inner world. He absorbed the sun into it. Lion had ascended to eternal god-level existence. Each movement carried the power to collapse universes. He tore through crystalline universe walls and brushed aside a hulking, bald intruder who demanded an explanation. Focusing his will, he selected a universe and activated his transversal ability to travel into that world's past. There he found Thanos, standing atop a mound of superhero corpses on Earth, Tony, Captain America, Thor, and the Avengers among them. "Thanos!" Lion roared as he descended. The winds, rains, and clouds scattered before him. Everything bowed beneath his gaze. In a single step, he unleashed a 15th stage secret technique and severed Thanos' head effortlessly. Standing atop the sea of bodies and blood, he held the dripping head aloft and laughed, wild, hysterical. "Thanos, die, die, Tony, do you see? I've avenged you!" His laughter echoed across the entire Earth. Yet his face soon cooled. "It's not enough. I must revive Tony." He returned to his own world, seized the Time Stone, and used its authority to rewind the timeline. As he moved to save Tony, 4 abstract entities manifested to stop him. "You cannot revive him," said one. "That is an absolute fixed point in time. Remove it, and you erase the conditions that led to your own present. Reviving him will destroy this world." Lion sneered. "Where were you when Thanos came? Don't come out now lecturing me on righteousness." "You cannot do this," the entities intoned. "A world without Tony is a world without meaning." The two sides exploded into conflict. Each punch, kick, and sword stroke unleashed supreme laws. Their battle raged for nearly a year. Its aftershocks shook the entire universe close to collapse. In the end, Lion stood at the edge of the dying cosmos, atop piles of white bones, clutching the dissipating heads of eternity and infinity. He used the Time Stone once more to rewind the past and succeeded in reviving Tony. The instant Tony opened his eyes, the world began to unravel. "This? Where am I? Didn't I die? Lion Stark, thank goodness you're not dead!" Tony cried, overjoyed but disoriented. "Why does everything feel off? Is this place collapsing?" "Ignore it," Lion said. "Come with me. We'll find another world." Lion pulled Tony into his inner universe and jumped to a different world. But as soon as they arrived on the new Earth, massive figures materialized above it, celestials of impossible size. The smallest stood hundreds of meters tall. The largest towered hundreds of thousands of meters. Their voices shook sea and sky. "Outsider, Lion Stark," they intoned in a single thunderous cry. Chapter 124. The heart is like a mirror. One can clearly understand one's true nature. "Outsider, you carry endless sins. Kneel and accept our judgment," declared the tallest of the Celestials. "By yourselves?" Lion Stark sneered. His body swelled, exploding outward until it spanned beyond 12 light years in an instant. He stood like a galaxy in the void, each motion threatening to collapse space itself. With one palm he crushed the Celestials, laws and raw energy pouring from him, wiping them away. Yet as they died, another quartet of abstract entities appeared on the battlefield. Lion rose to meet them. Countless years passed. Lion Stark moved from world to world, annihilating bands of gods who enforced the multiversal order. He devoured a universe once. He faced every superhero the cosmos could throw at him. With every battle, he grew stronger, but exhaustion gnawed at him. He sat, weary, on the surface of some world's Earth and watched the stars dance across the firmament. In that long struggle, he had broken through to God King, his power now exceeding the multiverse level. The corpses behind him could have filled a universe. Still, wherever he went, guardians of order rose to oppose him. The vast marvel seemed to have no place for him. Suddenly, thunder rolled through space. Stars around Lion detonated one by one. Enough! A mighty voice cut through the crystalline barrier of the universe. Lion looked up, solemn. The crystal wall opened respectfully to either side, as if greeting a superior. A figure taller than Lion descended, a great being with 3 faces and a humanoid form. Lion recognized it, the Life Tribunal, custodian of balance in the all-powerful universe. "Lion Stark, your crimes are many, and you show no remorse," the tribunal intoned. "In the name of the all-powerful universe, I shall pass judgment." Golden light spilled across the void as the tribunal's power of judgment sealed the universe. Even Lion Stark was bound, unable to move. "Do you know your sins?" the tribunal roared. Lion met the tribunal's gaze. I only regret that my strength is not yet enough to defeat you." The tribunal was unmoved. The judgment begins. The face of justice spoke first. "You have slain the gods, disrupted multiversal order, and committed unforgivable acts. You shall perish from the universe." The face of vengeance said, "You walked the path of vengeance. The multiverse's vengeance must now fall upon you. You shall be imprisoned for billions of years." The face of necessity added, "Your crimes sprang from desperation. There was no place for you in your original universe. Your resistance was understandable. Yet the universe you destroyed must be repaired. You shall serve the multiverse, maintaining its order forever." All three faces spoke as one. "We strip you of your powers to repair the universe and sentence you to imprisonment in the multiverse for 100 years, until death." Lion remained calm. He had long prepared for his own end. The carnage had not shattered his mind. It had forced him to ask himself, every time he struck, where this path truly led. Had resurrecting Tony been a mistake? Had vengeance ever been justified? He had failed to find an answer. The threads of his fate seemed woven from the moment he began his slaughter. "Do you have anything to say?" the tribunal asked before carrying out the sentence. "Lion Stark," the tribunal continued, "know this. Thanos did not come to your world because of a stone's spatial leakage. He was drawn by the energy you released while cultivating among the stars. Now that you understand the truth, if given another chance, would you still choose to grow stronger, to seek revenge?" The question struck at Lion's core, the same question he had wrestled with for 1,000 nights. He studied the tribunal's stern faces, and suddenly clarity came. All the claims that he could simply shrink back, that he should cowardly accept fate, he rejected them. If he cowered, he would be a weak man forever at the mercy of others. From the moment he was brought to this world, he had not been destined for ordinariness. Every hardship had been a symptom of insufficient strength. Though the tribunal's grip held him physically, Lion's eyes burned brighter than ever. "I will not regret it," he said. "If there is a next time, I will only grow stronger, strong enough to defeat even you." In that instant, Lion's resolve hardened like steel. He finally saw his true heart. The deepest longing behind all his fury and slaughter was to become invincible, so no one could ever threaten what mattered to him. Recognizing this truth elevated him. As his awareness climbed, the scene around him began to wobble like a crude shadow play. "This is an illusion? So I was still in an illusion. So I'm still in the starry sky world." Lion laughed to the heavens. "An illusion that dares make me give up my strength? Enough of this." The tribunal froze midair. The binding power around Lion inexplicably dissolved. The world shattered like a silver mirror. Before him, the vast, beast-like shadow in the Legacy Fortress reappeared. "You broke the illusion. How is this possible?" the shadow exclaimed. "Your state of mind is extraordinarily strong," it said, staring at Lion with surprise. "Stronger than many immortals I've observed. That illusion combined the illusionist's secret art with the law of time. I don't know precisely what you saw, but it was formed from your subconscious, so real it could test your spirit comprehensively. My expectation was for you to last a month in it," the shadow continued. "You shattered it in a single day. Congratulations, you passed the first assessment." Its tone toward Lion warmed significantly. "Would you like to rest or proceed with the remaining 2 assessments?" "Continue," Leon answered without hesitation. The hundreds of thousands of years he had believed he'd suffered in that illusion now felt like a mirror of his mental frailty. The Starry Sky World's illusion arts were indeed unique and potent. The law of time concealed their seams. But those scenes had been fragments, not the absolute truth. "I choose law comprehension," Lion said with resolve, shedding the last vestiges of the illusion. Chapter 125, Second Round of Assessment, Good. Special beings are deeply attuned to the law, and you happen to possess the attribute 0. This stage should be the easiest for you. The shadow stomped, and a ring tens of thousands of kilometers across sprang into being before them. This ring was made by the dream-eating race in the previous reincarnation era, it said. It uses illusion techniques and has 2 modes. The first mode lets you project your consciousness into the ring. The ring will simulate 2 phantoms with identical physical qualities. Your consciousness takes one phantom, killing the other counts as victory. The second mode is for life forms at universe master level and below with single lifetime genetics. In that mode, your physical body enters the ring. The ring consumes the cosmic energy it has stored to create simulated opponents matching your physical level, but with varying comprehension of the laws. In both modes, your opponent will only use basic law methods. Your assessment is to defeat the first opponent within 1 month. The shadow pointed to the dome above and the patterns on the ground. Those secret technique diagrams cover everything from basic lightspeed fusion laws to fifth-order lawmaster fusion techniques. You can study those patterns to accelerate your comprehension. Leon blinked. Only the first opponent? Only the first, the shadow said. But don't underestimate this ring. It emphasized, the simulated beings start at universe master level comprehension. The 10th is immortal level. The 21st, venerable level. And the 26th reaches lawmaster level. The reason you only need to beat the first one is that you've only just crossed the threshold of the law. I recommend using the second mode. Life and death battles accelerate progress, and you have an original nucleus. You won't die easily. Leon nodded. I understand. Let me try it. He leapt onto the ring. A fluctuation swept through his body, and seconds later, cosmic energy condensed into a person identical to him 100 meters away. Leon activated his biofield, accelerated time within himself, and fused it with the light law. Then let's go. He charged at light speed and threw a full-strength punch, a blow that should have shattered his own biofield. But as he closed, he realized the figure he had aimed at was only an afterimage. His punch missed and struck the ring, yet the surface did not even stir. He pulled back to create distance, and before he could react, his head exploded. Behind him, the mirror version retracted its attack. The entire exchange had taken less than 1/10,000th of a second. As expected, it failed. The huge shadow stepped forward, lifted Leon from the ground, and drew a ring from the depths of space, slipping it onto Leon's hand. Seconds later, Leon's head regenerated, and he was alive again where he had fallen. He touched his head as if testing it. I just died. My head was blown off. The power of the time law is strong, the shadow went on. Wait, why do you feel like you're basking in the sun? Leon looked around. There's no sun here. The shadow pointed at the ring on Leon's right middle finger. Look inside. Leon rotated the ring and let his consciousness sink into it. Inside was a world, a cubic volume 1 trillion kilometers across. For a lawmaster from the mid to late reincarnation era, that size might be insignificant, but for Leon, it was unimaginable. Even more astonishing, the world contained 100,000 suns, yellow stars, all of them. Leon stared at the shadow in disbelief. The shadow beamed. I knew this would motivate you. Those suns were collected by Zero during his travels through the universe. They're his usual food. He still has 7 or 8 rings like this. 1 meal is a ring full of stars? 7 or 8 rings more? Leon's mind raced. That meant 700,000 or 800,000 stars. He felt a sudden surge of motivation to pass the assessment. The shadow saw his thoughts and shook its head. Don't get attached. No matter how much you want them, they're not yours yet. This ring is only on loan. It will become yours only after you complete all the assessments. The mirror used a time afterimage, the shadow explained. It's an extension of the time acceleration law. If your comprehension of time is insufficient, you won't beat him. Prioritize the time law. Leon tightened his fist, fingers tapping in determination. Good, I'll focus on the time law. He sat cross-legged and began to study the secret pattern map the shadow indicated. Though the map was vast, it contained only 18 patterns. The 1st through 9th were images of light and suns, illustrating fused time-light laws. The 10th through 18th depicted fists and claws, dozens of secret techniques recorded in symbolic form. Leon began with the first pattern and felt drawn in as if staring at the laws of the universe itself. Each stroke of the pattern suggested magnificent law lines that spread out in his mind and branched into possibilities. His hands moved of their own accord. Light swirled around his fingertips, and time left visible traces in the air. Days slipped by unnoticed. He fought between sessions of comprehension. Every time his head was blown off, he seized whatever insight he had gained and returned to study. He died dozens of times, then slowly progressed from helplessness to fighting back to a draw. In one moment after another, he reached an epiphany, sitting cross-legged beside the shadow and staring at the map without blinking. A month has passed. Wake up! Wake up! The shadow's voice, deep as a bell, resounded in Leon's mind and pulled him back. Comprehending the law felt like merging with the universe, irresistible and endless. If you don't stop, you'll be overtime. The shadow warned. Leon stood and rubbed his eyes. Has it really been a month? Thanks for the reminder. How's your comprehension? Confident? The shadow asked, more anxious than Leon. Leon smiled. I think I can beat the third one. He stepped back onto the ring. The mirror opponent formed in seconds. Leon tapped his foot, fused light speed with his new time comprehension, and multiplied his image into tens of thousands of after-images. They descended at once. The mirror's head detonated, its form dissolved. Leon clenched his fist as the after-images behind him faded. Does that count as revenge? Of course, the shadow said, laughing. It was odd to imagine such a gargantuan lizard-like beast grinning, but Leon was used to it. He moved on. The second mirror opponent fell as easily. The third was different. They traded blows, and Leon ended up slightly inferior, his heart pierced. He leapt off the ring and used the ring's stored suns to rapidly mend himself. You reached the third level in one epiphany. Very good, the shadow praised. So now only the willpower assessment is left? Leon asked. That's right. Are you ready to start? Let's begin. There's nothing more to prepare. Chapter 126, The Miracle of Jiang Weichin. All right then. The giant beast god shadow rumbled and struck the ground. In an instant, the two of them vanished from the top floor of the fortress. Their surroundings shifted. They reappeared at the base of a massive staircase that stood alone in space. The staircase had 4 sides, all rising to a single platform at the top, like a pyramid. Every step beneath the platform looked as if it were carved from flawless white jade. High-grade material, Leon estimated he couldn't scratch even with all his strength. The Beast God Inheritance Staircase has 10,000 steps in total. A cosmic-level individual qualifies for the inheritance after reaching 800 steps, the shadow explained. This place was originally used for the God General inheritance, but it was modified by Zhou before his death and turned into his inheritance. After the 100th step, as you continue to ascend, the steps will assist you in cultivating your divine body amplitude and soul amplitude, and for every 1,000 steps you climb, Zhou left a treasure as a reward. In other screenings, your race, talent, and state of mind would already have been tested. On these steps, only your willpower is tested. Once you're ready, you can start the challenge. I'll wait here. The shadow finished and then sprawled out on the ground, watching Leon as if waiting for a movie to start. 1,000 steps? Doesn't sound too difficult. Leon didn't hesitate. He walked forward and stepped onto the first stair. He felt nothing unusual. Just as he raised his foot to take the next step, a dazzling white light shot down from the top of the staircase. It flashed and merged into Leon's forehead. Instantly, a piece of information appeared in his mind. The same force exertion manual the giant beast god Shadow had given him earlier. The Shadow's voice echoed. These first 100 steps assist with cultivating force exertion techniques. I planned to bring you here if you ever had trouble with that, but apparently you don't need it now. You said if I couldn't master it in a month, I'd be eliminated. Would you really have brought me then? Leon replied. Did I say that? I never said that. The shadow muttered, then began to snore like distant thunder, pretending to sleep. Leon shook his head and continued on to the second step. As the shadow had said, there was no pressure. He took several more steps with long, steady strides. It wasn't until he reached the 101st step that his chest tightened, as if something heavy had dropped onto his soul. 2 more white lights shot down from the top. One entered Leon's mind. The other condensed into a mysterious jade box in front of him. The light in his mind was an amplitude secret art called Zhou's Divine Body, divided into 10 layers. The introduction explained the art could be cultivated with the help of the steps. Each layer corresponded to 1,000 steps, and when fully cultivated, one could achieve a force exertion amplitude of 10,000 times. Clearly, this wasn't the time to actually cultivate it. Leon opened the jade box. Inside lay a set of pitch-black battle armor, seamless and appearing as if it had grown naturally. Even lying quietly in the box, it seemed alive, exuding an aura as heavy as a mountain. The instant Leon saw it, his eyes burned with a sharp sting, as if pricked, proof of the armor's power. This is an ordinary Supreme Treasure level battle armor, an encouragement before the formal challenge begins. You might not know what a Supreme Treasure is, the feigning shadow said, getting up and lowering his massive head to explain. A Supreme Treasure is something even a Lawmaster would covet. This battle armor can immunize against any attack below the ordinary Venerable level, and it reduces damage from Overlord-level Venerables to 1/10,000th. Mystical indeed. But it might have a small flaw for you. The shadow scratched his head. What flaw? Leon asked. To bind it, you need at least the willpower of a peak king. After binding, to activate it, you need energy equal to 10,000 times the power of a world master. The shadow added, the power of a world master here means the basic strength possessed by a peak world master with a 1x genetic factor. So I won't be able to use it anytime soon. Leon closed the box. The shadow looked embarrassed. This fortress was meant to be buried in the primitive star, where most inhabitants are venerables. Even though Jia was a lawmaster, he couldn't imagine a cosmic-level inheritor would ever come here. The first 100 steps for cultivating force exertion were mostly decorative, to make the inheritance seem complete. There are dozens of heavy treasures in the fortress, like decorations. Once you pass the inheritance, you can try them out. Heavy treasures are just decorations too, as expected of a lawmaster, Leon muttered. He slid the jade box into his world ring. But you said this supreme treasure is an encouragement prize. Even if I fail, I can still take it, right? The shadow's eyes twitched. You haven't even started officially, and you already think you'll fail? Of course not, Leon said. I will succeed. The encouragement prize is redundant. He stepped onto the 102nd step. The shadow retreated and sat down to watch. 103rd step, 104th step. As the count rose, the impact on Leon's mind intensified. Between the 100th and 600th steps, his face stayed calm and his progress was swift. But at the 601st step, his relaxed expression began to harden. The beast god shadow beside him even seemed to hold his breath. He murmured, after 600 steps, it's domain lord level willpower. 800 steps is the domain lord limit, but he's only cosmic level 9. It's too hard, too hard. In the starry sky world, willpower generally scales with one's realm. Leon had the benefits of clear mind and insight states and 100-fold genetic factor amplification, so his willpower had already reached the mid to high level of a domain lord. Still, as he climbed, fine beads of sweat appeared on his face. His body did not feel tired, but wave after wave of mental pressure battered his spirit. It was like a tide washing over him. 701st step, 702nd step. It felt like a giant hammer striking his mind. Leon gritted his teeth and pushed on. When he reached another step, the shadow called out, 751 steps, well done! But Leon's vision had begun to blur. Cold sweat trickled from his eyelashes into his eyes. Not the cause of the blur, just a symptom. The true reason was his spirit. It had to narrow his awareness so tightly he could no longer attend to the outside world. The constant mental impact felt like countless blades slicing at his soul. Each step upward sharpened those blades. 789th step, 790th step. Leon was sprawled across the stairs in pain, close to his limit, yet he crawled forward. This test was of willpower. The pain was in his consciousness. Whoever could endure it would go farther. Leon's desire to become stronger made him refuse to yield to pain. His goal was clear, 800 steps. He cut every doubt out of his heart. His vision was black, but his inner sight remained fixed on the steps above. 798th step. Blood bubbled at the corners of his mouth. He bit his cheek to create physical pain to counter the torment in his mind. He imagined throwing punch after punch at the enemy. This pain. 799th step. Leon trembled all over. The sunlight flowing from his world ring healed his body constantly, but it could not touch the agony in his consciousness. The gap between realms in the starry sky world was thousands of times. Even with blessings, Leon still faced a gap of dozens of times. He had made it this far by sheer will. Only one step remained. His right arm trembled, barely able to lift. Alas, as expected, still not enough. Never mind. At worst, I'll go back to that gloomy place and sleep for a few 100 million epochs. The shadow's voice sounded beside Leon, thick with regret. Little fellow, don't push yourself any further. The world ring and the supreme treasure are yours. If you keep going, you'll damage your soul. The shadow could see Leon's mind and spirit at the breaking point. This child probably hadn't experienced such extreme hardship before. Reaching this far on talent and state of mind alone was already impressive. But Leon didn't respond to the shadow's pity. He had no words left. He could only roar inside his mind. No, I can't stop here. I must go further. I must succeed. His desire to become stronger had never wavered since he obtained the Kryptonian bloodline. Past deaths, the transmigration of his previous life, and a cautious youth had forged an unshakable drive. All his beliefs braided into an unbreakable rope to shield him from the mental onslaught. As his inner shouts reached a peak, something within him shattered into sound. Deep in his genes, a golden light ignited and spread rapidly through his body. His genetic factor shot upward like a rocket, 101 times, 102 times, 200 times. His willpower surged and began to transform. The bone-deep, heart-wrenching agony of a moment before suddenly seemed trivial. He staggered to his feet and forced his body forward for the last step. 800th step. How is this possible? Genetic factor doubled, willpower advanced to world master level. The giant beast god shadow exclaimed in disbelief. Leon stood on the step, staring at his hands in equal astonishment. Was that Superman's ideal ability? How is this possible? Do you know what just happened? The beast god shadow asked, leaning in. Leon frowned. I don't. Nothing like that has ever happened before. Let me think. Maybe it's some kind of hidden talent, the shadow guessed. Some life forms have latent abilities that only activate later. It immediately backtracked. No, that can't be it. Even a talent wouldn't explain a gene increase of more than 100-fold before someone becomes a lawmaster. You can't achieve that kind of increase through late-stage enhancement. Try again, the shadow urged. Recall what you felt and try to reproduce it. Leon tried to remember. It felt like my genes were responding to my will, he said slowly. It was like, at the moment my will was about to break, it held firm. I was determined to reach the 800th step. That's it. That's exactly it, the beast god shadow said urgently. Hold on to that state of mind and feeling. Leon shut his eyes and searched for the same mental thread, the moment of nearly breaking but refusing to give up. He gathered his consciousness into a single taut line and started climbing again. Step 801, step 999. The pain returned, that unbearable pressure of a limit about to snap. Ah! He cried, forcing himself onward. But this time, even as he teetered on the edge of collapse, no miracle came. The beast god shadow helped him back down. When Leon recovered, the shadow muttered, Your talent is more complicated than I thought. Leon lay on the ground, utterly drained, willpower spent. I wish it were simpler, he said. He missed Tony suddenly. He could have used Tony's analytical mind. Tell me about your birth, then, the shadow offered. I've lived longer. Maybe I can give you some advice. Leon hesitated, then described in rough terms the origin of his Kryptonian bloodline, another existence source similar to the source will, modified by the source will, so his genes gained a 100-fold increase. The shadow frowned, staring at Leon like he'd just described something outlandish. You're saying your Kryptonian bloodline came from an existence comparable to the source will, but it had a low upper limit until the source will modified it to be only 100 times stronger? That's impossible, the shadow paced, exhaling in long huffs. Not even the source will would stoop to modify the body of a cosmic-level being like that. Even if that other existence rivals the source will, it continued, it wouldn't hand you a Kryptonian bloodline with such a low cap. Something's missing. Those words struck a key in Leon's mind and snapped open a chain of thoughts. Of course, the original world wouldn't send out a Kryptonian bloodline with a tiny upper limit. He had gained the Kryptonian bloodline at the same time as his traversing ability, and that traversing power was enormous. The bloodline couldn't be trivial. Leon's thoughts raced through details. How his traversing ability behaved between two worlds, how smoothly the bloodline adapted when modified, how his genes and will shifted together at the limit. The pieces came together. It's evolution and inclusivity, he said, voice steady. My Kryptonian bloodline can evolve when it hits a ceiling, and it's highly inclusive. It absorbs and integrates strengthening factors and systems it encounters, he continued. When it reaches its present limit, it transforms and evolves. I was looking at it the wrong way. Just like my traversing ability can reach higher levels, the Kryptonian bloodline can become stronger through repeated breakthroughs. Fusion is the simple part, like with the S-virus in the Resident Evil world. Even if I was immune, my cells could still integrate the virus's mutations. Evolution is the hard part. From what I experienced on the steps, evolution probably requires a metamorphosis of mind and will. The bloodline promotes and amplifies that process, and then it evolves itself. Leon rubbed his chin, an odd smile forming. It's very comic book. In despair, you scream, never give up, and suddenly turn the tables. But one thing's certain, if my genes keep evolving, 1,000 times, 10,000, 100,000, I could become a silver Superman, a golden Superman, or even a supreme Superman. The beast god Shadow listened, increasingly baffled. So you know what you are? It asked, scratching its head. Your adjectives are weird, but close enough. I've never been so clear either. Leon stood, energy slowly returning. Have I passed the assessments? The beast god Shadow inspected him carefully, then nodded. You've passed. Congratulations, you've received the inheritance of the light-time beast god. It wriggled its scale-covered tail in obvious delight. Come on, let me show you the fortress. With a stamp of its foot, the scene changed. They were standing in a vast realm, mountains and rivers, clouds drifting in an immense sky, a lake flowing beneath them, and a courtyard perched atop a distant peak. Everything here was enormous. Leon estimated distances and sizes measured in millions of kilometers. This is the fortress's bottom layer. When Shadow travels the universe, it rests here, the beast god Shadow explained. Everything you see, the clouds, the waters, the land, are treasures. Take what you wish. Leon's eyes lit up. The shadow wasn't finished. It pointed to the mountaintop courtyard. The world ring that contains a star is in that courtyard. You can go fetch it later. With a wave of its thick forelimb, the beast god Shadow shifted them, transporting the two to another place. Chapter 128, The Inheritance of Zhangzhou. What unfolded before his eyes was an impossibly vast library. Shelves upon shelves of books stretched densely to the limits of Leon's sight, as if they continued on forever. This contains most of the secret manuals Joe collected, the giant beast Shadow said. It includes various laws and fusion techniques, up to the highest level, the ultimate secret arts of a lawmaster. You can cultivate any of these manuals. Except for the lawmaster level secrets and the amplification secret arts, the others you may freely spread. Leon's sharp eyes caught a cluster of technological instruments tucked in a corner of the library. He thought of Tony and Jarvis and asked quickly, "Is there any technological knowledge from the previous reincarnation era here? Anything like a mechanical heart that can let an intelligent program become a life form?" A question mark seemed to appear above the giant beast Shadow. Technological knowledge? Why would you want such useless things? You don't have a mechanical heart here either. What, do you want one for your intelligent life? The Shadow replied, its tone full of disdain for technology. Leon rubbed his forehead. As a beast god born as a lawmaster, the creature looked down on tech, and as the beast god's consciousness, the giant beast Shadow had the same attitude. I have an older brother and an intelligent butler. They need these things, Leon said. The beast's sharp gaze softened a little. It's good you're not pursuing those unorthodox paths. Remember, you are the successor to the great lawmaster Zhao, destined to make the path of light time famous throughout the universe. You cannot stray. With a casual flick, it produced two mechanical objects from a pile of devices, tiny things no larger than its pores. Here, these are the best ones. Leon took them. One was a head-sized light computer. The other was a metal box. This light computer is the data core from a spaceship Zhou once crashed into while traveling. That ship was an immortal warship, so the light computer should store a great deal of technological knowledge. At the time, the wreckage was plummeting toward a life-bearing planet, so Zhou picked it up on a whim. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bothered with such things. The other is an evolution key. Normally, for an intelligent program to become an intelligent life form takes millions of years. This key can flood an intelligent program with data streams and compress that evolutionary process into a week without altering the program's essence. Leon nodded repeatedly and placed the light computer and metal box into his inner world. Satisfied? Anything else you want? No, I'm very satisfied, the giant beast shadow said, then slapped its paw. The two returned to the base of the assessment stairs. This is the third level, where treasures are inherited. You receive a supreme treasure for every 1,000 steps you climb. The reward on the highest level is a set of peak supreme battle armor and a high-grade soul supreme treasure. Leon nearly gaped at the words, peak supreme treasure. But the beast merely slapped its paw again, and the pair were sent back to the initial dark chamber of secret patterns. The giant beast shadow pointed at the sky, alive with moving scripts. This is the core inheritance ground of the top level. All secret arts created by Zhou himself are here, and you may not spread these particular scriptures. Next is the fortress core. Its expression grew serious. The beast slammed its claws into the floor, and they were instantly transported to the final chamber. It resembled the top level, a pitch-black void pierced by a single golden-yellow light. As they approached, Leon made out the source, a gilded sphere. Its surface looked like the same impossible material as the fortress itself, utterly smooth, no texture even under his supervision. Surrounding the sphere stood 8 giant beast god sculptures, each 100 meters tall. Leon felt a rush of insight simply from looking at them. Clearly another treasure no less valuable than the secret pattern diagrams. This is the core of the fortress. Those 8 beast god sculptures are engraved with 8 types of fused law paths for comprehension, the giant beast shadow explained. What you must do now is recognize this fortress as your master. Leon raised an eyebrow. Recognize the fortress as my master? Is this fortress a supreme treasure, a heavy treasure? It's called the Time Fortress, a palace-type peak supreme treasure. A palace-type peak supreme treasure? Leon gasped. Even true gods would covet this. The giant beast grinned. You're quite perceptive. Its recognition condition is special. It demands willpower 1 level higher than your current cultivation. Back then, Zhao spent trillions of epochs strengthening his true god-level willpower to recognize it as his master. You're far luckier. Leon's face brightened. Exactly. My willpower is at the world master level, while my cultivation is only cosmic. I can definitely make it recognize me as its master. With willpower 2 levels above his actual strength, he could probably force even the Star Tower of a God King to accept him as master. He stepped to the gilded sphere, placed his right hand on it, and calmed his mind. A mental shock instantly punched into his original nucleus, but for someone with world master level willpower, the impact barely registered. Half an hour later, the Time Fortress accepted him as its master. When Leon opened his eyes, the giant beast shadow smiled with relief. It's done. At last. The inheritance has a successor, and I can finally be freed. The joy that had bloomed in Leon's chest cooled. What do you mean by that? He asked, looking up at the giant beast. The beast shadow shook its head. I am not an intelligent life. I am composed of a fragment of memory and a portion of the divine power Zhou left behind. My purpose was to find a satisfactory inheritor. Across the long passage of time, to prevent the rootless divine power within me from being consumed by time, I remained in slumber. The past month was my first awakening in trillions of epochs. I thought it might be a waste of divine power, but I found a successor so smoothly and completed my mission. I am already very happy, little one. I must thank you. You are truly favored by the source will, the giant beast shadow approved. Throughout endless years, very few could attract its attention, let alone a cosmic-level speck. Yet this child before it had won its favor. So that's it. Leon's expression turned complex. No wonder the beast had resembled the beast god sculptures so closely. It was Zhao's remnant. He had briefly thought of bringing the giant beast shadow back to Marvel, but now that seemed impossible. So, the moment I successfully obtained the inheritance, you were destined to die. Ouch! Just as the lonely sting of parting threatened to rise in his heart, the giant beast shadow's large paw shoved him forward, sending him stumbling. Chapter 129. Your origin will send an angel investment invitation. What kind of expression is that? The giant beast shadow thundered. As a successor of Zoe, you're not allowed to show that. We of the beast god lineage only fight with indomitable spirit. My death happened in the last reincarnation era. Now I'm just fulfilling my last wish. I'm happy. Why should you be sad? Leon answered. The beast shadow's voice rolled like thunder. Enough. The next step is the final one. His whole form flared with an endless reddish-white light as divine power surged outward like a river of stars. Prepare yourselves. To keep the powerhouses of this reincarnation era from noticing, I will burn my divine power to send the time fortress into your inner world and disrupt the space-time here. In an instant, the beast shadow solidified, and his lawmaster-level divine power enveloped Leon. Time stretched and compressed, both in age and a heartbeat at once. When Leon opened his eyes, he was already back outside the moon. The space was empty. He could still see thousands of human universe ships heading toward the moon. Time appeared frozen at the moment he had first arrived. Had it not been for the fortress standing like a pillar in his inner world and the new knowledge now lodged in his mind, Leon might have thought it all a dream. Time acceleration, a rotten chess trick. Is this a lawmaster's method? He muttered, staring at the moon. He was about to head back to the base where Hong and Lei Shen waited when a vast fluctuation descended. The source will contacted him proactively. You have 3 days left, it said. Leon was surprised. 3 days? That's enough. But you gave me such a generous inheritance and still leave me 3 days? How considerate. He patted his chest. Don't worry, Brother Will. I won't forget this kindness. Once I reach True God, I'll come back immediately to help you deal with the Beast God crisis. Beast God crisis. Beast God. The Source Will's reaction was immediate and sharp, like a cat's fur standing up. Beast gods are nurtured by the supreme rules, born to devour everything. Their emergence almost always means the original universe is heading toward destruction. Leon covered his forehead. I was so focused on improving my strength that I forgot to mention it. The biggest crisis this reincarnation era faces is the Beast God. Here's how it is. He briefly explained the original plot and emphasized the importance of the protagonist, Luo Feng. Knowing the truth of the crisis and the Savior's identity in advance could only benefit the original universe's future, and Luo Feng's. As for the more distant future, where the Source Will might be taken over by Luo Feng, Leon suggested a preventative measure. Invest in Luo Feng early, give him advantages so that later he wouldn't have reason to take over. That's how it is. Luo Feng is a grateful person. I suggest you build a good relationship with him, Leon said. Who knows, when he becomes a lord, he might return one day to help you and turn you into a true life form. Luo Feng, Lord, what about you? The Source Will asked hesitantly. What, me? Of course I'll help you, Leon replied. Can I become a lord in the future? I don't know, but I'm confident, Leon added with a wry smile. The Source Will fell silent for a long moment. Return when you're a lawmaster. I will prepare some things for you. Leon raised an eyebrow. Good heavens, was the Source Will about to start a second round of what amounted to angel investment? He couldn't help smiling. Good, it's settled. 3 days later, Leon sat cross-legged in the void of the universe, with stars, suns, and moons rotating behind him. He absorbed sunlight pouring in from the world ring. Every cell rejoiced. Mitochondria swelled and contracted like nuclear turbines, spewing out molten power. Inside his original nucleus, the galaxy born in the universe's early stage had grown vast, an ever-spinning galaxy with 8 spiral arms and a giant central spiral black hole, plus 8 smaller black holes on the arms. At a certain moment, Leon opened his eyes. Energy is sufficient. Collapse the galaxy. Begin the breakthrough. He willed all surrounding energy into his original nucleus. The inner world galaxy began to tremble and expand as its 9 black holes intensified their pull. The arm black holes devoured their spiral arms. Then the central black hole absorbed the smaller ones, and the brilliant galaxy vanished. Only a single black hole remained, gorging on incoming energy. It swelled, then collapsed on command, drawing all matter inward. Slowly, a gray sphere appeared in the original nucleus, an alternative singularity. For an ordinary human, this would have been where the breakthrough ended. To reach World Lord, one would shatter the gray sphere and create an inner world Big Bang. But Leon was a special life form who already possessed an inner world. After the gray sphere formed, it expanded again, overlapped with the original nucleus, and finally fused. The breakthrough completed, he had crossed the threshold into Domain Lord. Upgraded genetic original energy fed back throughout his body. Every drop of blood, every cell, every bone restructured at a deeper level. Golden law patterns etched across his skin, the imprints of law carved into flesh. His already exceptional body was optimized further. Most noticeably, his rate of growth sped up again. Although the energy requirement for a higher breakthrough grew exponentially, his re-optimized genes and body kept his advance from slowing. This is a Domain Lord, incredibly powerful, Leon thought, testing his new limits. A normal first-stage Domain Lord possessed strength equivalent to 2 trillion tons. Leon's genetic multiple was 200 times that, giving him a base strength of 400 trillion tons. With his 100-fold force technique, he could exert a terrifying 400 quadrillion tons. That was approaching a typical World Lord's strength, but still dwarfed by celestial masses. The Moon, for example, weighs 735 quintillion tons. His force couldn't match that mass. However, when speed was factored in, enhanced by the law to approach light speed, even a full-force punch capable of shattering a planet was no longer an idle claim. It's time to leave. Leon looked back once and then propelled himself toward Earth. Chapter 130, Returns to Marvel. Before leaving, Leon left a stack of secret manuals for Hong and Lei Shen, who had just broken through to the star level. He also handed Hong the giant egg of the Jinjiao Torch Beast. The Torch Beast's cloning talent duplicated his own and couldn't be stacked, so it was more useful to leave it to his disciples. "Keep this for now. It might be useful later," he told them. "If it hatches before I return, you and Lei Shen can decide which of you will take over its body." Leon knew the world consciousness would be watching over him in the future, and he might even be able to host a special life form. A mid to upper tier opportunity like the Jinjiao Torch Beast would do little for him now, so it made sense to entrust it to Hong and Lei Shen. "Master, please be careful on your journey into the universe." Hong accepted the egg solemnly, as if cradling a small mountain. Lei Shen rubbed his bald head and grinned. "Master, how did you cultivate so fast? You're already a Domain Lord. Heh, when Hong and I go to the universe, we'll be counting on you for protection." "Get out of here!" Leon waved them off. "You two are always itching to fight. What protection do you need? No, your job is to protect Earth. I'll go to the universe first to lay a foundation. You'll come find me." With that, he disappeared in a flicker, as if he'd never been there. Lei Shen stared at the empty spot, stunned. "I still can't see any trace of Master's movement. Hong, how strong do you think he is now?" Hong, carrying the egg, patted Lei Shen on the shoulder. "At least 10,000 times stronger than us. Only someone like him is a true powerhouse. We'll work hard. Next time we meet, we'll give him a real surprise." Leon floated in the starry sky world. When he activated his cross-world ability, he noticed something odd. He had spent 8 days there, but 10 days had passed in the Marvel Universe. Time in the Marvel Universe flowed faster. When he first crossed over, the energy cost had nearly drained all his stamina. Now, on his return, that same crossing took less than 1/billionth of his stamina. The difference was staggering. Arrival had cost him 2 million tons of energy. Departure had required 400 quadrillion tons, an indication that he was over 10 billion times stronger than when he first arrived. His power had advanced from surface level to planet busting. That was the effect of a high-level world on a normal Kryptonian. Because he brought an inner world and a fortress with him on the return trip, the energy cost spiked again, eating up 1/10 of his stamina. Leon considered that he should be cautious, not only to conserve energy, but also because he'd shared a long look with the Ancient One before leaving. Vanishing 1 second and reappearing the next with strength increased by 10 billion times would be an awful shock to a century-old sorcerer. So he anchored his return to 10 days after he had left, activated his cross-world ability, and crossed back. Camartage. Leon appeared in his dormitory. It was night, exactly 240 hours after he had departed. Moonlight slanted through the curtains. He was about to leave when a tight frown crossed his face. Dozens of different gazes seemed to converge on him at once, as if dozens of unseen watchers had been waiting in the corners to see what he had become. He looked around reflexively. The gazes disappeared the next instant, like mice caught stealing cheese by their master. Only one gaze remained. Leon turned his supervision through the wall and found the source, the Ancient One, meditating in the inner hall. He drew a breath. Those inquisitive stares had not been an illusion. If anyone could peer at him unnoticed, it would have to be beings at multiversal scale. Vishanti might be involved, but Leon suspected it was broader than that. In Marvel cosmology, there were world consciousnesses. The first firmament had once been the all-encompassing being. After it fractured and the multiverse formed, generations of cosmological consciousnesses emerged. The current personification of the multiverse was eternity, present in every universe, but each universe contained only a cell of the greater whole. Leon imagined a chorus of those vast minds peering down at him and saying, "Look, this kid has brought something new from beyond the omniverse again." He shrugged off the thought. More important was how the source will had altered him. The transformation felt natural, no pain, no rejection. His strength continued to climb, bolstered by the 100,000 stars in his ring. His primordial genetic energy could now be channeled at will. The only downside was that the laws of the Marvel Universe were not completely identical to those in the Starry Sky world. Only some of the light and time laws he had mastered would function here. He would have to relearn many laws in this universe. Leon unfurled his psychic awareness and swept it over Earth. He could sense Tony and the others working hard halfway around the globe, and he saw the scenes in the hastily erected lead shelters, people scrambling to survive, scientists and sorcerers racing to patch reality. Psychic sight made this easy. He smiled to himself. Next, I'll see the Ancient One. She'll be curious about what I found. He opened the door and knocked on the sealed inner hall. Inside, the Ancient One sat behind a table, watching him with a look of warm curiosity and something like admiration. "You're back?" she asked. "I'm back." Leon took the seat opposite her. "You've only been gone 10 days, and you look like a different person. The other world must be incredible." The Ancient One poured him tea. Leon took a sip and praised. "Master, your tea is still excellent." "It's only a small change," she said modestly. "I'm a little stronger, but I must keep cultivating." "A small change?" The Ancient One protested, tapping her folding fan. "I can't see through you anymore. How strong are you now?" Leon smiled and snapped his fingers. The air around them filled with microscopic prisms that multiplied and expanded into a mirror dimension. The energy feeding the spell came from the primordial genetic core within Leon. "It should be pretty good," he said quietly. The Ancient One felt that sudden surge, an enormous, fleeting power that rolled out from Leon like the presence of a star. It could be as soft as a breeze or as fierce as consuming flame. In her perception, it was vast and unprecedented, a power system both alien and magnificent. Her emerald eyes brightened as she regarded him. Chapter 131. Zhang Guyi, what are you doing, Guyi? Not only is it possible, you've already surpassed me, the Ancient One exclaimed. Mr. Lion waved a hand. Don't say that. Every discipline has its strengths. I may be physically stronger, but I'm nowhere near your level in magic. The Ancient One shook her head. Magic is an accumulation. I can see you've already started exploring the laws of the universe. That path leads to the true roots of sorcery, she continued. I can foresee that one day you might stand among the Vishanti, or even go beyond them. You should try to contact the three at Kamartaj with a special ritual. It would help your development. Development? Mr. Lion raised an eyebrow. Not necessary. I've already found the right direction for myself. Research into magic isn't needed. Once you grasp the fundamental rules, producing magical effects is effortless. So I'm here to say goodbye, Ancient One, he added. Thank you for everything, Ancient One? He snapped his fingers, preparing to close the mirror dimension. To his surprise, the Ancient One struck out at the same moment and stabilized the space. She rose and smiled with unusual modesty. Mr. Lion, I'm very pleased with your progress. She formed a mystic seal, and the inner hall of the mirror dimension expanded with impossible geometry. The doors on either side folded into walls. But there is one thing I regret. You've opened a world inside yourself, haven't you? She produced 2 rings of Ragador in her hands. Mr. Lion watched her sudden, defensive posture with growing confusion. I do, he said. Ancient One, what are you doing? Her smile drained away. The duty of the Sorcerer Supreme is to keep dimensional demon gods from Earth. With a world inside you, you've become half a dimensional demon god, Mr. Lion. That means I must drive you out of the Earth dimension. Are you serious? He couldn't believe she would be so rigid. The sternness on her face, something he had never seen before, made it clear she wasn't joking. The Ancient One flipped the table between them with a single motion. Will you leave willingly, or shall I force you? Ancient One, I was born here. Mr. Lion narrowed his eyes. I can't just leave Earth. If you insist on this, you can't stop me. He launched himself into the air. Out of respect for your years of protecting Earth, I won't fight you this time. Ancient One reshaped the mirror dimension. The floor rose and fell like waves and closed in on him. You cannot leave, she said, and struck out. The rings of Ragador in her hands spun and became the attacking mystical fans of Ashtur. But her movement, to Mr. Lion, was glacial. He sidestepped her blow easily. Her sudden change of heart made him impatient. Something felt off. Ancient One was not normally bound by inflexible rules, and besides, he hadn't officially become a dimensional demon god. If you attack again, I'll fight back, he warned. He grabbed her wrist and tossed her several meters. Normally, she would have cast a spell to land gracefully, but to his astonishment, she sailed away like a kite on a snapped string. Mr. Lion, confident in his micro-level control of strength, could have tossed a person or even an ant without harm. But Ancient One was flung far, and just as she was falling, the ground beneath her opened into a bottomless pit. It looked like she intended to plunge to her death. Alarm bells flashed through his superbrain. He darted forward, thinking of every contingency, and in an instant his body was beside her. He caught her, cradling her as gently as possible. Ancient One was stunned, surprised that she had been saved. She gave him an apologetic smile, tilted her head, and went still. No, Ancient One. Mr. Lion felt the floor drop out of his own mind. Even his superbrain froze at the implausibility of it. He dispelled the mirror dimension, carried her body back into the inner hall, and laid her on the floor. A quick scan with his supervision returned a diagnosis that made his chest go cold. Cerebral infarction. She died suddenly of a stroke, he breathed. The idea that the Sorcerer Supreme had died of a stroke in the middle of the night felt absurd. Then he remembered Ancient One's shadow. He sat cross-legged, projected his consciousness, and drew the shadow of the Ancient One out from her original nucleus. The shadow appeared outside the body, alive and whole. The shadow of the Ancient One walked calmly through the inner hall door. Mr. Lion followed, finding the living projection standing on the training ground, staring at the starry sky. What were you doing? He demanded. She watched the stars with a distant air. I was choosing the next Sorcerer Supreme for Kamar Taj. You mean me? He had never imagined that. He had assumed she would pick Strange. After all, in the film she had called Strange her most outstanding pupil. What about Strange? He asked. He can continue as a physician, or he can come to you to learn magic, she said, turning to him. Mr. Lion, because you killed my body, you will take on the role of Sorcerer Supreme. His head spun with questions. He had killed her? All right, so this was how she intended to play it. Mr. Lion pointed at her physical corpse across the hall. You can't die today. You won't die. I won't let you. His shadow rejoined him, and he sprang into the library, grabbed the Eye of Agamotto, and raced back to the body. Following a sequence from his memory, the method recorded in his recollection of the castle of Cagliostro, he formed hand seals and invoked the Time Stone's power. A swirl of green gem energy poured over the corpse. Die? I'll see you try, he muttered. A few seconds later, the body grew colder. He cut the spell and crouched to examine her. Something had appeared, a mark of the dark dimension on her forehead and traces of dark dimension backlash along her limbs. Ancient One's shadow, having stepped back into the physical world, explained flatly, the dark dimension lies outside the universe. Its energies are not governed by time. You cannot use the Time Stone to revive a body touched by the dark dimension. Mr. Lion opened his mouth and found no words. Chapter 132, Death of Zhang Gui. This death had been planned down to the smallest detail. She had even prepared for the rescue methods in advance. Leon was genuinely impressed. He had figured it out. The Ancient One truly wanted to die. Ancient One, I can understand your wish to return to eternity's embrace, tired after centuries of holding back the dimensional demon god, he said. But if you force this on me, there's no way I can step in as Sorcerer Supreme, Leon added flatly. Even understanding her motives, he refused to accept things on her terms. Do you expect that just because you die and drop this burden, I'm automatically obligated to take up the fight against the dimensional demon god? The Ancient One folded her hands and smiled apologetically. Everything Leon had built in the last 15 years was on this earth. Of course, he would want to protect it. Even if the Life Tribunal came, he would be at the forefront. But she didn't believe that obligation should be forced upon him. Just as she had let Kamar Taj's students descend the mountain when they were ready, she had never required repayment. Her rules were for herself, not for others. In a softer, pleading tone, she said, "Then, please, for the sake of your training under me, could you temporarily take over? Just the basic duties. Resist the dimensional demon god. You wouldn't want Earth to suffer a dimensional invasion, would you? Leave everything else to Mordo. He's a very reliable sorcerer, if a bit inflexible. When the time is right, you can pass the position to Strange." Her brows and eyes were gentle as moonlight through a temple window. Her plea was nearly inaudible. Leon looked at her. The refusal that had been on his lips slowly faded. "If you die, I will stand up to protect Earth, but it will be by my own choice," he said. "Ancient One, have you looked at my future with the Time Stone?" She shook her head, confused. "I have, but it isn't precise. The future I see doesn't mean much to someone who can travel across worlds." "Then I'll be frank." Leon's voice was steady. "It isn't impossible for me to become Sorcerer Supreme, but you know me. I'm not an Avenger like Strange or Tony. They prefer to defend and retaliate after being attacked. I like to cut dangers off at the root. If I become Sorcerer Supreme, Earth might not remain a single dimension." The Ancient One's eyes widened. "You mean you intend to invade other dimensions?" "Yes, I have such a plan." Leon's answer was blunt. "So, do you still accept a Sorcerer Supreme like me?" Her translucent spirit hovered, stunned for a long moment. Then she drifted to the window and gazed into the silent star field outside. The vast heavens projected down to Earth made each star seem a tiny point of light. The immensity of space made the world look small. The reflection of the star field flickered in her eyes, and she chuckled softly. "Even if I don't accept, there's no other way, is there? I'm already dead." You have a point." Leon nodded, then reached into his inner world and produced a cup of water. "But there is a way to bring you back. It's Zeus spring water, rich with life force. 1 cup, if the soul remains, can revive a corpse that's been dead up to 7 days." The spring water had been taken from a pool 1,000,000 kilometers across on the first floor of the Time Fortress. Originally called Luotian water, it aided comprehension of time law. But the beast god Zeus loved to bathe in it. A naturally born beast god was a treasure. Even a single droplet of its saliva could turn an ordinary person into a superhuman. Over eons, the Luotian water had been contaminated with traces of Zeus's bodily fluids and had become extraordinary. Leon had renamed it Zeus Spring Water. He never drank much of it himself, only used it when meditating on the laws, but it was excellent for reviving others. The Ancient One felt the cup's astonishing life energy. Leon's claim sounded believable. The water could also cleanse a great deal of dark energy during revival. She was stunned. "Where did this come from?" she asked. "Think of it as the legacy of a dimensional demon god far stronger than Dormammu," Leon said. She pursed her lips. "Then, we shouldn't waste it. Such a precious thing should be saved for a truly critical moment." Leon shrugged. "It's not that precious. I use it to bathe." The Ancient One went quiet. After a few seconds, she turned back to the stars. "Grand Sorcerer Leon, then I entrust Earth's safety to you." "You haven't said whether you want to be revived," Leon said, spreading his hands. "Ever since its creation, Earth has been coveted by dimensional demon gods." She remained unmoved. "If you don't answer, I'll pour this cup over you," Leon announced and began to tilt the cup. "Dormammu, Mephisto, the Eye Demon Nightmare," the Ancient One began, ignoring him. "I'm really pouring it now," Leon snapped, pinching the corpse's lips. "Cough! Cough! Grand Sorcerer Leon!" The Ancient One coughed out, helpless at being forced into the conversation. "All right, stop joking. Just let me go peacefully tonight." Her voice was exhausted. Seeing the cup already tipping, she added, "After I'm gone, you'll be Sorcerer Supreme. How you handle the dimensional demon god is up to you." Leon put the cup away. "Very well, Ancient One. Go in peace. I'll visit Eternity in a few years and bring you some good news." "What good news?" she asked, puzzled. "That Kamartaj has become a holy land of the dark dimension," Leon said casually. The Ancient One stared at him, then sighed. If the student had been strange, she would have lectured about reverence for death, that even at one's last moment, one should look upon the stars with respect. With Leon, she simply raised her eyebrows, shook her head, and said, "Take care." "I will. Then goodbye?" Leon put his right hand to his chest and gave a small wave. Her final instruction came in a thin, fading voice. "Goodbye, Leon. My contact with the dark dimension was born of necessity. That sort of power is repulsive, but sometimes, to protect the world, one must use power beyond the rules. You are stronger than I was. If you can grow on your own, don't rely on external things. Mordo is steady, but his youth makes him inflexible. Your adaptability and strength will balance him. Earth is in your hands, and his." Her words scattered into the moonlight. The Ancient One's ethereal shadow dissolved completely. Leon stood for a long moment, then looked back down. The body on the floor had gone cold. The next day, Kamartaj held the Ancient One's cremation according to Kathmandu customs. On a high platform of stacked firewood lay the Ancient One in her familiar beige robe, hands folded over chest and abdomen, her face calm in death. Aside from the masters on duty at the three sanctums, every member of Kamartaj had gathered. They stood in plain robes, facing the pyre, heads bowed in mourning, forming hand seals. The Ancient One had guarded Earth for centuries. Each person here had felt her care. Her death meant the loss of a stabilizing force. Mordo stood at the front of the crowd and recited a eulogy in Tibetan. Though the Ancient One was Celtic by birth, she had protected this land for so long she had become part of it. When the last embers died and the final line of the eulogy was spoken, some masters stepped forward to collect the ashes. Others wept quietly. By the time the funeral ended, it was already evening, but the masters of Kamartaj still had one important matter to address. "Everyone," Mordo said, "the Ancient One foresaw her own death 10 days ago." The announcement landed in Leon's chest like a sudden twist. So she had planned this. Had she been holding on just long enough to secure a successor? Frustration flared and then cooled against the enormity of the moment. "She told me, and many of you, that a little over a month ago, we welcomed the most powerful and reliable of new masters, Superman." Mordo pointed at Leon. Heads turned in unison. Some faces showed curiosity, some approval, some shock. None expressed doubt. Who on earth didn't know Superman's name? Even remote villages had heard of him. The masters, of course, knew how formidable he was, but a physically dominant powerhouse as a master of the mystic arts? It was surprising. The crowd made a way. Leon walked to Mordo's side. "From now on, you can just call me Leon," he said. Mordo regarded him closely. Leon had returned to Kamartaj late last night. By morning, the Ancient One was dead. Mordo couldn't help wondering whether she had kept herself alive long enough to arrange a successor. Given Leon's strength, perhaps there truly had been no better choice. "I believe many of you have seen Dr. Leon's power," Mordo continued. "Some of us witnessed his mastery of magic half a month ago." The memory of Leon's demonstration on the training ground flashed through the crowd. Using Oshter's energy to release the crimson bands of Sitorak, channeling Sitorak's force to summon the winds of Watumb. Spells brilliant enough to leave the masters awed. He is unquestionably the strongest among us, and our most reliable ally. The Ancient One told us before she died that her successor should be Leon. Vishanti has approved this appointment. Therefore, Archmage Leon is our new Sorcerer Supreme. Mordo announced it loudly, his expression solemn. The appointment of a Sorcerer Supreme dictated Kamartaj's future and Earth's, and there was no room for levity. Of course, under Doctor Strange, the title had sometimes taken on a lighter tone, but that did nothing to the gravity of this moment now. Mordo led the assembled masters in a formal salute to Leon. The plain robes bowed like a field of wheat toward the sun. Leon returned the salute when they straightened. His face was composed, but inside he bristled at the speed of the Ancient One's planning. No wonder Mordo had not been surprised when Leon told him last night he would accept. Everything had been arranged. When the salute concluded, Leon looked at Mordo. Is that all? Doesn't the Sorcerer Supreme's inauguration require trials? Mordo nodded. Normally, one must undergo the trials of the Vishanti and defeat other powerful masters. But since Vishanti has already approved you, he added, those procedures aren't strictly necessary. Leon scanned the gathered masters. Still, I'm new here. It's better to fight, so everyone can see my strength and have confidence when the time comes to repel dimensional invasions. He said it as a reassurance to them, but inwardly the reasoning was sharper. If he didn't have a chance to prove himself now, dissent would greet him in future invasions. Better to start his tenure with a test by fire. The masters exchanged bewildered looks. Their expressions said, "You can survive nuclear blasts, and you want to fight us? Do you plan to kill us on the spot?" Seeing their faces, Leon formed a hand seal. "I mean tests of magic only, no physical blows." Mordo's eyes widened with relief. "I think that's acceptable, but are you confident? You've only studied for a little more than a month." "Don't worry," Leon replied steadily. "Watch." "All right." Mordo hesitated, still unsettled. Then he explained the customary rules to the masters assembled from Hong Kong, London, New York, and beyond, groups taking turns sending representatives to challenge the candidate, with breaks allowed for rest. Leon cut him off. "Wait." He looked around, meeting dozens of skeptical faces. "I'm different from previous Sorcerer Supremes. I'm highly durable, even against nuclear-level attacks, so everyone come at once." He added with a faint smile, "Of course I don't mean to slight you. I only want to reassure you. If you do that, something bad could happen." Mordo started, but Leon's gesture silenced him. With a casual push, he shoved Mordo forward into the center as well. "Archmage Mordo will be one of you. All right, the challenge begins now." For a few seconds, the training ground was completely still. The masters glanced at each other, then readied themselves. A minotaur stood among them, scales and horns reflecting torchlight. Others muttered incantations under their breath. Conversations in Cantonese, English, Tibetan, and other tongues floated through the air. The lively atmosphere eased some of the sorrow left by the Ancient One's passing. Then the circle tightened. Leon stood calm at the center, waiting. The challenge had begun. Chapter 11, Battle of Magic. The sorcerers hesitated. If they faced him one by one, many would have leapt at the chance. Some even felt the urge to clench their fists in anticipation. But to attack all at once, even if this new Sorcerer Supreme were as powerful as Superman, without resorting to brute strength, every one of them could end the fight in an instant with a crimson band of Cyttorak. That was why they held back. It wasn't that they underestimated Leon's power. They simply didn't want the newly appointed Sorcerer Supreme to lose face on his first day. "What, you're not going to move? Fine, I'll start." Leon understood their reluctance. He'd called this challenge specifically to clear away those doubts. With a snap of his fingers, the mirror dimension silently expanded, folding Kamartaj into itself. "Everyone, be careful," he warned. He flipped his hand. The ground within the mirror dimension lengthened and twisted. The training ground's diameter stretched to a full kilometer as the brick-laid surface undulated like a storm-tossed sea. 4 to 5 meter waves rolled forward, pressing down with an inexorable, sky-collapsing force. Some slower or weaker sorcerers were buried at first contact, leaving only stunned faces exposed, wide-eyed as if they'd been turned into dazed radishes. Those were the first casualties, nearly 60% of them. The rest reacted instinctively. Some used crimson bands of Cyttorak to fling themselves onto walls. Others channeled winds of Watum for lightened leaps. When they landed and saw their colleagues half buried in the earth, any remaining hesitation evaporated. Leon had just produced a vast, perfectly controlled mirror dimension. His power surpassed ordinary sorcerers by a wide margin. Faces hardened. The sorcerers went to work, scattering across the field to surround him. Librarian Wang was among them. Quietly, he traced a circle with his right hand, preparing a portal beneath Leon. Mordo conjured a Vishanti's holy sword with both hands, his back hunched like a leopard ready to pounce. Surrounded, Leon kept his left hand behind his back and formed a mudra with his right, waiting calmly. In that pose, he looked for all the world like the Ancient One mid-incantation. The sorcerers moved with cautious precision, forming seals, muttering incantations, circling him as if preparing a sacrificial rite. The standoff lasted until Leon let out a small cough, by all appearances nothing more than a polite clear of the throat. It was the cue. Hundreds of attackers sprang into motion. Portals opened simultaneously around him, up, down, left, right, leaving nowhere to flee. Dozens of crimson bands of Sidorak lashed at every angle of his body. Behind them, dozens of Vishanti's holy swords and 100 lesser magical implements launched. A few tried to wrest control of the mirror dimension, but none could displace Leon's control. "Now that's more like it," Leon said. He made a single hand seal, and several seraphim shields snapped into being, enveloping him without a gap. The mirror dimension flowed at his command. Long rectangular blocks of earth pushed up through the ground, angling through the portals and lifting Leon out of reach. The coordinated portal pincer collapsed. The ground split in two, half flipped up into the sky, while the other half plunged down. Leon hovered, supported by the earth blocks. Many sorcerers lost their footing. Nearly half tumbled into the chasm created by the split ground. All the crimson bands were swallowed by the seraphim shields. What looked like a near defeat for the sorcerers had turned into a stinging setback. Clinging to a rock to avoid following the others into the abyss, Librarian Wang gritted his teeth and flexed his sling ring again, trying to alter the portal beneath Leon and whisk him away. Mordo lashed a magic chain around a huge stone and swung to the north face of a building. The upheaval had reoriented the architecture so rooftops became side walls. Seeing Mordo's maneuver, other sorcerers leapt onto the new northern edges. Portals opened and reinforcements teleported in from other sections of the sanctum. Leon dropped from the earth blocks, evaded Wang's portal, and extended a building with the mirror dimension to catch himself, still fighting purely with magic, never relying on physical strength beyond that of an ordinary man. "My turn," he announced. His hair remained untouched as he formed another single-hand seal and conjured a Vishanti's holy sword. Perhaps it was fair to call it Leon's holy sword now, since he channeled his genetic primal energy so often into his spells. He fired the golden blade toward the sorcerers and then flowed into form of icon. That duplication spell didn't just create copies of himself, it could replicate magical weapons. The sword multiplied again and again in midair until thousands of golden blades rained down. Mordo's eyes narrowed. Combine defensive magic, construct a barrier. Hundreds of sorcerers raised seraphim shields at once. When their dimensional energies fused, the shields expanded into a vast barrier stretching for hundreds of meters. The golden swords struck with pattering impacts, each one peeling into ripples and then fading. "As soon as you can use bolts of Balthak, join me in a combined attack," Mordo called. "Arch-sorcerer Mordo, isn't that a bit?" Wang complained, hanging onto the rock. "Not using it now would be worse." Mordo snapped, and he was first to call down the spell. Golden lightning birthed from his hands. Dozens of bolts of Balthak converged, leaping in a dense electric current between the buildings. This magic could travel across material surfaces, gaining power as it bounced. It was one of Kamartaj's most devastating offensive spells. Few in the sanctum could execute it so swiftly. The golden currents crawled along the buildings toward Leon like a swarm. Thunderous explosions rippled through the air as they gathered into a continuous roar. Leon did not retreat. He advanced into the storm. He didn't rely on raw physical resistance. He formed a mudra against the oncoming lightning and unfurled a golden light shield. Hoggoth's ancient spell. The bolts of Balthak had brightened to an orange-yellow from their many bounces, a force that would have made even powerful enemies pause. The moment that 2 to 3 meter wide stream struck Leon's shield, something extraordinary happened. With a tremendous crash, the lightning and shield fractured into thousands of emerald butterflies, swarms of glowing motes that dissipated harmlessly. That was the effect of Hoggoth's ancient spell, to neutralize hostile incoming attacks, especially energy-based onslaughts. Chapter 135. What are you looking at, Odin? Emerald butterflies fluttered across the sky, glinting like clusters of green crystal in the sunlight. Mordo stared blankly as they drifted past his face. "Unbelievable," he muttered. His Hoggoth's ancient spell actually blocked bolts of Balthak fired by dozens of people at once. The same spell could behave very differently in different hands. Revered Lion had an endless reserve of primal genetic energy to back him. Even a basic charm could be amplified to planet-level power at his whim. He blinked at the dazed crowd and grumbled, "Why is everyone staring at butterflies? Are we in a turn-based combat game?" Then he added, "Fine, my turn." With a gesture of his right hand, he repeated the trick, form of icon, but this time on himself. In an instant, thousands of revered lions replicated, floating in the air. Each one conjured a fan of Osther, blades that could slice through almost anything. Mordo's brow bulged. He barked orders and had the masters raise protective shields. It didn't help. Thousands of revered lions attacked in unison. The shields splintered like panes of glass, and the clones overwhelmed the remaining masters in a few exchanges. "The Sorcerer Supreme challenge ends here," Lion said. When even the most stubborn Mordo was subdued by a clone, Revered Lion snapped his fingers. The clones dissolved, the mirror dimension collapsed, and the thousands of masters returned to the training ground, either bruised and dusty or staring blankly into the distance. Those who looked roughed up had been beaten by Lion himself. The majority, who sat dazed, had been buried at the outset of the challenge. Their emotions were tangled. The Ancient One's death should have been mourned, yet their new Sorcerer Supreme had just proven himself overwhelmingly powerful. Joy mixed with sorrow and shame. They had been defeated so easily by someone who'd only studied magic for a month and yet surpassed them all. The training ground fell quiet. A few masters sighed now and then. Revered Lion felt no guilt. He laughed softly, walked over to Mordo, and kicked the dejected man's foot. "Well, I told you I was confident." Mordo forced down a sigh, pursed his lips, and exhaled through his nose. "The Ancient One made the right choice in choosing you as Sorcerer Supreme. You beat everyone on the first day. What do you know? This is courtesy before force. No, wait, it's team building." Revered Lion grinned. "Team building?" Mordo echoed. "To build understanding between the masters." Lion spread his hands. "After that fight, everyone understands me. So tell me, was that team building or not?" And that was only the beginning. Lion clapped and drew the others' attention. Mordo braced himself, thinking Lion would strike again. Instead, under 100 curious gazes, Revered Lion produced a giant lobster from who knew where. The creature was 8 meters long and 2 meters wide. "Thank you all for participating in the Sorcerer Supreme Challenge. You've all worked hard. Come, let's have a simple dinner first." Lion handled the lobster like iron tongs, peeling and preparing it with quick, practiced motions. He conjured a small flame on the training ground and began grilling the enormous crustacean, oiling, flipping, seasoning, every movement precise and effortless. Within minutes, the air filled with a mouth-watering aroma and the lobster's flesh glowed golden. These ingredients came from another dimension. You all must try them. To suit his role as Sorcerer Supreme, Leon used magic for everything. He produced Vishanti's holy sword, sliced the lobster into portions, and distributed them with a wave. One taste prompted rapturous approval. The masters gave exclamations and thumbs up as they devoured the meat. They knew of creatures from other dimensions, but dimensional lobster was a novelty even for them. Even the usually austere Mordo hesitated only briefly before taking a bite, and then ate ravenously, his face betraying embarrassment mixed with hunger. "Ah, my body!" Suddenly, an elderly master with a Taoist topknot bolted upright. "What is it? Master Hamir, what's wrong with you?" Mordo, who knew the old man, rushed forward. "Could it be the lobster did something? Dimensional creatures? No, my body! It's healing!" Master Hamir shook his head in disbelief, his topknot bouncing. He stepped past Mordo and gripped Lion's shoulder with his one sound hand. "The damage I paid for using magic is recovering. This is incredible. Lion, thank you." He bowed deeply in a master's salute. The other masters noticed changes in themselves, too. Gastric holes were healing, tremors in limbs subsided, lost senses like smell and touch returned partially. "This is amazing. What dimension is this meat from?" a master named Daniel demanded. "From a dimension called the Starry Sky World," Lion said with a smile and produced more lobsters. "Don't get too excited. There's plenty. One for each of you." These lobsters actually came from the Starry Sky World Earth, monstrous, hardy creatures that occupied a range comparable to Apprentice First to Fourth Order. Lion had captured specimens that had crawled ashore and were preparing to assault human bases. He'd stocked them in his inner world as emergency rations. They were resilient, carriers of the RR virus, but after a simple treatment from Lion, they'd become harmless and nourishing, ideal for the masters of Kamartaj. Each master received a huge lobster and rejoiced. A practical problem soon became apparent. What kind of shell is this? My cleaver's edge is curling. I can't cut it. Master Wang grunted, hacking with a butchering knife to no effect. Some resorted to summons of the mystic art of portals to assist. Others displayed their skills one after another, much more animated than during the earlier contest. Even Mordo, who had been rigid and doctrinaire, used Vishanti's holy sword to slice the meat, his face showing eager satisfaction. It wasn't that his principles had been abandoned, it was simply that Lion had given them too much. The lobster feast left the masters sated. The sorrow over the Ancient One's passing eased with the setting sun and a full stomach. Revered Lion was gradually stepping into the role of their emotional anchor and protector. If anyone now dared claim Lion was unworthy of being Sorcerer Supreme, they would surely be cut down by a dozen swords. During the meal, conversation was sparse. Everyone just ate. Lion sat between Wang and Mordo, using the lull to assign them responsibilities. From now on, Wang, you'll handle internal affairs and magical instruction. Mordo, you handle external crises. How about that? He pronounced grandly. From now on, the two of you will be my sleeping dragon and young phoenix. In ancient times, Sun Quan consulted Zhou Yu on foreign affairs and Zhang Zhao on domestic matters. We're no worse. Kamartaj will rely on you. Good, good. Mordo, pleasantly warm and a little dazed from the feast, mumbled. But who are Zhou Yu and Zhang Zhao again? Lion made something up offhandedly. They were the greatest masters in history. He suddenly frowned and stood. Someone's observing me. What? Wang, spoon poised, looked up in confusion. Who dares watch Kamartaj, a dimensional demon god? Mordo rose, lobster in hand, but reluctant to let go. No, it's Odin. Lion drew a circle in the air and opened a mystic portal. On the other side, high on a golden throne, sat Odin. Oi, Odin, what are you staring at? Revered Lion stepped through into Asgard. Chapter 136. Zhang Modu's mood fluctuates. Though it was his first time meeting Odin in person, Revered Lion's attitude was far from warm. He seemed to have come to demand an explanation. The reasoning was simple. It was one thing for a higher-up to spy on him. After all, you couldn't fight what was stronger. But how dare an aged Odin pry so openly? Did the All-Father really think the sling ring in the hands of the newly appointed Sorcerer Supreme was something to be trifled with? Not to mention how his power compared to the Odin of the comic world. Even if peak Odin, the one who could casually destroy a spiral galaxy, appeared, Revered Lion wouldn't flinch. At worst, he could pull the Time Fortress from his inner world. You have the Destroyer armor. I have a peak treasure. Even if that treasure couldn't be used right away, simply placing it there would deter anyone. Besides, Asgardian divine power grows as they age, but their bodies can't always handle the increase. Odin was already on the verge of physical collapse, not far from entering the Odin's Leap. He wouldn't risk fighting unless he was ready to let his divine power run unchecked and potentially destroy Asgard. Is that you, the new Sorcerer Supreme? Odin's lone eye glanced lightly at Revered Lion from his throne. He propped himself up on Gungnir, calm and imperious. He hadn't expected the man he'd been spying on to sense him and appear so quickly. Slightly embarrassed but unmoved, he showed no intent to apologize. Odin, who had once fought across the universe, was not one for words. He had met many Sorcerers Supreme on Earth and granted respect to very few. Ancient One had been one of those rare figures. Welcome to Asgard, wizard from Midgard. Odin looked down at Revered Lion, stepping from the portal. The golden palace rose around them like a miniature divine kingdom. The All-Father sat supreme, radiating power that subdued everything beneath it. Revered Lion stood below, as if he might be crushed by that majesty. On the other side of the portal, Wang and Mordo followed them through. Wait, Revered Lion, did you say Odin? Asgard's. Mordo's voice died. The two younger wizards fell silent the moment they entered the palace. The dome, the endless divine power. They felt like ants seeing the universe for the first time, dwarfed by a vast dimension. They glanced from Odin to Revered Lion, then back, stunned to find their new Sorcerer Supreme staring at Odin with a cold, unfaltering gaze. He made no move to step forward and greet the All-Father. He didn't even bow. After a beat's hesitation, both kept their heads raised and their expressions turned grave. Wang, still chewing shrimp, swallowed and quietly put on his sling ring. Mordo formed a tentative hand seal and stepped forward, trying to sound composed. "Greetings, Sir Odin. We are honored by your hospitality, but we are here to ask why you've been prying into Kamartaj," Mordo said stiffly, trying to speak on behalf of Kamartaj. "The Ancient One herself said we could be trusted. So why, immediately after her passing, would you overstep like this?" He leaned close to Revered Lion and hissed, "Revered Lion, that's Odin. Calm down. One wrong move, and this could spark a war between our worlds. And more importantly, we can't beat him," Mordo admitted inwardly. Growing up on stories of Norse gods had left him in awe of Odin. After joining Kamartaj, he understood more clearly just how powerful Asgard's king was. He hadn't imagined he'd ever be questioning such a being in person. Now his legs felt weak. He hoped Lion would smooth things over quickly so they could return to guarding Earth. Revered Lion smiled, much to Mordo's dismay. "Well said." He clapped Mordo on the shoulder. "Odin, you heard him. Before we talk guests and pleasantries, our Mordo wants an explanation." Cold sweat broke out on Mordo's brow. He felt numb. The Sorcerer Supreme had just pushed him forward to take the fall. He looked at Lion, about to give him a glare that said, "You betrayed me," but the next moment, Revered Lion shrugged off his outer coat. A black substance rippled across his skin, instantly covering him like a second body. It formed into a dark, form-fitting suit that traced every line of muscle, more angular and armor-like than the Superman suit Mordo had seen online. Mordo had no idea what it really was, an otherworldly combat suit called the Black God suit, with extraordinary defenses, able to withstand impacts up to 500 tons and to transform at will. With the suit on, Revered Lion's aura shifted violently. It pressed down like an inverted mountain, oppressive and suffocating. Mordo felt something stabbing into his senses, his eyes, his nose, his throat, until his head ached, as if some terrible presence emanated from Lion. He shook his head, and when he looked again, Lion had returned to normal, a handsome young man without that sharp, oppressive edge. For a moment, Mordo wondered if he had hallucinated the whole thing. But Odin had risen from his throne. The silence that followed draped the hall. The white-haired All-Father stared at Revered Lion with his single, intense eye, speechless. Mordo felt his heart hammer. This was it, he told himself. Earth and Asgard were about to go to war. The next moment, however, the colossal aura surrounding Odin seemed to deflate. He sighed, a sound that stripped arrogance from his bones and aged his whole being in an instant. He was still upright, but his back bent just a little, his shoulders slumping with sudden frailty. "I am very sorry, Mordo," Odin said. He apologized. Mordo was stunned. Odin's gaze, however, remained fixed on Revered Lion as he spoke. "The reason I intruded into Kamartaj was that I heard of the Ancient One's passing and could not help but come to see an old friend one last time." He sighed again and descended the steps. "As an old man who has lived longer than I can count, the loss of another old friend fills me with uncontrollable grief. I hope you can understand." Odin approached Revered Lion and looked up at the young man, who was slightly taller. Beside the All-Father's fatigue, there was a trace of wistfulness. He regarded Lion's suit with interest and said, "What a fine battle suit, esteemed Sorcerer Supreme. If you need gear, Asgard has many good things. Why not take a few as a gift for your new appointment?" Chapter 11. Battle. Kamartaj versus Asgard? It's haunted. Odin was actually backing down. Even Mordo, who was no politician, realized something had happened between Leon and Odin that he hadn't seen. Maybe a confrontation began and ended in a realm he couldn't perceive, and Leon had come out on top. Leon could do more than beat ordinary sorcerers. As the new Sorcerer Supreme, he truly had the strength to face other dimensional demon gods on equal footing. Mordo retreated a few steps and left the stage to the two great figures. Standing beside Wang, he noticed the librarian had started eating shrimp again as if nothing had happened. "Wang, aren't you nervous?" Mordo asked. Wang shrugged. "Leon won. Why would I be nervous?" "You saw their battle. How did you watch it?" "What battle?" Wang popped another shrimp into his mouth. "Didn't you see Odin blink first?" Mordo was speechless. "I didn't mean—" He went quiet and listened to Leon and Odin talk. The more he heard, the weaker his legs felt. He almost had to sit down. Leon, unusually deferential at first, demurred as if embarrassed by the favor. Then, without warning, his tone shifted bluntly. "The Ancient One just passed," he said. "Everyone will be offering their condolences. Don't give them separately. Give them all to me. I'll accept them on behalf of Kamartaj." When Odin heard Leon asking for gifts, he didn't bristle. If anything, his smile widened. "Of course. Shall I show you Asgard and then take you to the treasury?" "That's not necessary," Leon replied. "There are only two things I want, the casket of ancient winters and the eye of Agamotto. If you can spare it, it would be helpful to borrow the eternal flame for a while." The casket and the eternal flame would help him study cosmic laws. He didn't ask outright for the flame because of its connection to Asgard's Ragnarok. The eye of Agamotto, however, properly belonged to the Sorcerer Supreme, named for Agamotto of the Vishanti, and it made sense to return it to Kamartaj. Its primary power was to detect crises in the universe and trace their origins. Legend had it Odin once used the eye to learn of Ragnarok. Odin's smile faltered when he heard the request. "The Eye of Agamotto is indeed an artifact of the Sorcerer Supreme. You may take it, that is only natural." He spoke agreement first, then added a cautionary note. "The casket of ancient winters would serve sorcerers well, but it is a frost giant relic. Other races find it difficult to use. It can harm them, even as guardians." He conveniently avoided mentioning the eternal flame. Leon changed tack. "Your Majesty, where are your two princes today?" "They accompanied Frigga to Vanaheim," Odin said. "It's a pity. They might have gotten along with you better than this old man." Leon grinned. "When they return, let me spar with them. If I win, you hand over all three artifacts." Odin's eye twitched. The sorcerer jokes. Young people should be civil. Such competitiveness is unbecoming. Unbecoming was an understatement. Odin, thousands of years old and bearing the weight of Skyfather power, was furious at the idea of a human, or whatever Leon now was, proposing to spar with his two unruly sons. For a moment, he felt a rare disappointment in Thor and Loki. Leon clearly expected a refusal. He feigned thoughtfulness and then offered a new proposal. "Then let the other sorcerers of Kamartaj, excluding myself, spar against Asgard's warriors, excluding you and the Queen. 5 combatants on each side, each appearing once. Best of 5. If your side wins, we ask for nothing. Friendship matters more than artifacts. If Kamartaj wins, return the Eye of Agamotto and lend us the Casket of Ancient Winters and the Eternal Flame for 5 years." Leon had wisely softened his demands. Rather than demanding permanent transfer of artifacts, he asked only for a loan. Yet with time dilation between worlds, 5 years could yield decades of practice for him. Odin found the proposal reasonable. "The sorcerer speaks wisely," he said after deliberation. "A spar between allies is a token of friendship. I accept." He wanted to see the level of Kamartaj's sorcerers, and he liked the idea Thor might learn that the power beyond the divine realm deserved respect. "Shall we set a date?" Leon asked. His challenge had been spontaneous. Obtaining the artifacts was secondary. Primarily, he wanted to flex Kamartaj's strength and temper its sorcerers for threats from other dimensions. Odin narrowed his eyes. 4 months from now, by Midgard time, on your Christmas day at year's end." "Oh? His Majesty invites us to celebrate here? Haha, we'd be honored." Leon reached out and took Odin's hand. "Then it's settled." "Settled," Odin nodded. The moment they agreed, a contract formed in their palms, witnessed by the Vishanti. Odin stared as dense lines of text flowed across his hand, the terms they'd just discussed. The Sorcerer Supreme had come prepared. Leon had the contract already written. The handshake sealed it. With the Vishanti as witness, Odin could not withdraw his word. Leon patted Odin's shoulder. "It was a pleasure, Your Majesty. I won't keep you. We'll meet again in 4 months." Then he gathered the 2 stunned sorcerers, opened a portal, and returned to Earth. The lobster feast wasn't over yet, after all. Odin remained alone in the palace, Gungnir in hand, staring at the contract on his palm. He thought it through and still believed Asgard had little chance of losing. These sorcerers drew power from dimensional entities. Without the protection of the 3 Sanctum's circles, how could they match the Asgardians outside of Earth? Still, he couldn't shake the image of Leon's confident smile. He sighed. "If only Thor had half of that composure, I would sleep easier." Chapter 138, Chapter can win back on Earth. The trio stepped through the portal. As soon as it sealed, the curious sorcerers swarmed around them. Revered Lion hadn't even begun to explain when Mordo doubled over, clutching his head. By the Vishanti, Revered Lion, I never imagined you could be that strong, actually forcing Odin to back down. He was first astonished, then frantic. But wasn't your agreement with Odin too rash? Asgard is full of gods, physically powerful and magical. How can we, sorcerers, possibly win a fight on their ground? Mordo had always been serious. Even now, though trembling and sweating, his mind was already racing toward the battle in 4 months. He genuinely wanted to win. You don't think we can win? Lion asked, turning to him. It's very difficult, Mordo admitted. Lion lifted his right hand in a fist, conjured an energy whip with his left, and asked, This plus this, do you think we can win? Mordo hesitated. If you're doing it, then yes, you could win. But that's you. You're not entering the fight. He swallowed. You mean the other sorcerers can't win? Right, it'll be hard for us to beat those gods. Lion nodded. I also think we can't win. Then why sign the agreement? If the contract stands, won't we just make fools of ourselves in Asgard? Mordo's anxiety spread to the others. The sorcerers leaned in, confused and clamoring for answers. Mordo, still wound tight, began to explain with animated gestures. Minutes later, the full picture emerged. They cheered to hear Lion had forced Odin to yield, then fell silent when they learned of the agreed battle. Revered Leon, perhaps you haven't seen our true strength, Grandmaster Hamir tried to interject tactfully. We're specialists in dealing with dimensional threats. But fighting gods who have divine power and magic, we may not have the advantage. The sorcerers began an eager, opinionated debate, comparing their capabilities. Most of Kamartaj's sorcerers were defenders of Earth, so their techniques emphasized protection and containment over raw offense. Together, they could be coordinated and formidable. One-on-one against a god who was an all-around combatant, they'd be stretched thin. Lion smiled and shook his head. He raised a finger and projected images into the air. A golden-red suit of armor streaking into the sky, a giant green monster roaring atop a mountain, 10 swirling rings ripping open the sea. Do these people have a chance against Asgard? He asked. Yes, they do, but they don't look like sorcerers, Wang said, scratching his head. You don't think they look like sorcerers? No, but I say they are sorcerers, direct disciples of Kamartaj, trained from childhood. Lion shrugged. They're just specialized, a little too specialized. But sorcerers these days are inclusive. Who's to say someone who casts a bit of light and then hacks a dragon with a chaotic blade isn't a sorcerer? Who can say someone in an armored suit isn't weaving spells inside it? Lion's remarks left the gathered sorcerers flummoxed. You mean to bring Iron Man and that green fellow as outside help? Daniel twitched at the corner of his mouth. Several sorcerers hesitated. Losing to Asgard would be an embarrassment for Kamartaj, but inviting external help felt dishonorable to their rigid sense of pride. Leon smiled. If you don't like outside help, then train harder. I'll personally have Wang and Mordo learn some combat magic, and they'll teach it to the rest of you. 4 months from now, if you can beat or at least draw with the outside aid, then you'll be allowed to participate. If you lose, don't feel guilty. As for the 2 people you saw in the images, I'll teach them magic too. By then, they can be considered members of Kamartaj. That answer eased the tension. The sorcerers brightened and became animated. Revered Lion, what kind of magic will you teach us? Lion gave a mysterious smile. You'll find out in time. Enough talk for now. Don't forget, dinner isn't over. With a flourish, he produced a giant deep-sea octopus from his inner world, tens of meters long. Come see, guaranteed delicious. He set a fire and arranged a grill with practiced hands. Tonight we mourn the Ancient One's passing, celebrate my taking the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme, and resolve to defeat Asgard. Tonight is our last revelry before the dimensional demon lords and hell lords who covet Earth learn of the Ancient One's death. This will be the beginning of our real fight. Who'll sing an inspiring song to mark this unforgettable night? The first to eat the barbecue when it's ready gets to perform. The sorcerers were swept up by Lion's words and the prospect of barbecue. I'll go. Grandmaster Hamir, resplendent in his ancient robes, was the first to step forward. He began chanting the Sutra of Purity in the center of the training ground. His serene chanting sent a few of the Taoist-dressed sorcerers into soft sway, but it nearly put everyone else to sleep. Too slow, too inspirational, someone grumbled. The scholarly old Wang was next. He pushed Hamir aside and sang a nostalgic Chinese ballad, My Ambition in My Heart. It was too old-fashioned, though, and a younger sorcerer shoved Wang out of the way with a grin. Old songs are boring. I believe I can fly. Dinner stretched for 3 hours. When the sorcerers finally dispersed, they left with full bellies, satisfied smiles, and a few hummed melodies still echoing as they stepped through portals. With the last sorcerer gone, Lion had Mordo and Wang use the winds of Watum to sweep the training ground clean. He watched them huff and puff and thought that the Ancient One's funeral had been right to be joyful. After all, she had been at peace in death. Why should they mourn? Dance on her grave, he thought. Let it be a celebration of her retirement. He was about to leave when Mordo and Wang, having finished cleaning, halted him. What are you doing? Lion asked. Well, we wanted to ask. Mordo began awkwardly, eyes on the ground, hands clasped behind his back. We want to ask when you'll teach us that new magic, Wang cut in decisively. Teach you magic? Lion gave Mordo a curious look. For a moment, he'd misread Mordo's hesitation as something personal and almost cut him off. He figured Mordo's awkward posture came from being shy about asking instruction from someone who'd only been practicing for a month. How old-fashioned, Lion thought inwardly, and couldn't help but smile at the little anachronism. Chapter 139, Hulk. What's the rush? I'll definitely teach you, revered Lion said, waving a hand. Hey, wait, Lion, revered Lion. At least tell us what kind of magic it is? Wang was burning with curiosity. He and revered Lion had gotten along well. Both were Chinese, and they'd become friends back when revered Lion was studying. He hadn't meant to call him the Sorcerer Supreme so casually today, but the words slipped out in his hurry. Revered Lion halted him. Even if I told you now, you couldn't learn it. You and Mordo should handle the immediate affairs of the sanctum for the next while, he went on. For this training I plan, you two will probably be away several months. The agreed battle with Asgard was supposed to temper Kamartaj's practitioners, to get them ready for proactive combat and make it easier for them to follow him into the dimensional worlds later. Winning was still the goal, of course. Revered Lion had first thought of borrowing power from his inner world for Kamartaj's mages, but after a quick experiment, he found his inner world was too immature, the energy transmission range too narrow, and the efficiency too low. That problem wouldn't be solved until he became a world master, or even an immortal, and transformed into a true dimensional demon god. So he considered a different method: introduce new magic into Kamartaj's system. Since he was the Sorcerer Supreme here, he should bring something different. He remembered that Marvel had a wizard system, wizards like Agatha who could borrow power from nature as well as use their internal energy. It made him think of Hogwarts from that other world. An early-stage world like that wouldn't do much for him personally, but it could enrich the magic knowledge of Kamartaj's students. And revered Lion wasn't going to be here every day like the Ancient One, patiently instructing every mage. He planned to send Wang and Mordo to Hogwarts for training. When they returned, they could teach spells like Avada Kedavra and especially Expelliarmus. Expelliarmus would be miraculous against Asgard, almost essential. 9/10 of the Asgardians' strength came from their weapons. If the mages could cast Expelliarmus as battles began, they'd win half the fight before it even started. Going to Hogwarts would take at least a few days, though. He had handed all of Kamartaj's affairs to Wang and Mordo, and they'd need time to set things in order. Several months? We're going to Asgard for advanced study, to beat them with their own magic? Wang and Mordo exchanged looks. That's a solid idea. If we win, I can mention it to Odin and ask him to let you two go as exchange students for a year, revered Lion said casually. He drew a circle and opened a mystic art of portals. You two, sort out the sanctum's daily business as quickly as you can. I'll go home for a few days first. Call me when you're ready. He stepped through the portal and vanished. Wang scratched his head. By the way, what's his phone number? I don't know. Mordo stared at the portal. Wait, didn't you just see something big and green on the other side? The thing revered Lion showed earlier? He gulped. It looked like Could revered Lan have already gone to recruit outside help? Wang and Mordo exchanged shocked looks. How are we supposed to handle something that terrifying? No, we have to finish our work fast. If revered Lion's recruiting, he might bring in every fighter he can find. They rushed off to their respective duties, planning to work through the night. On the other side, holy crap! As soon as revered Lion closed the portal, a rush of air whipped by his ear. He turned and saw a huge fist coming straight for his face. He casually grabbed it, lifted, and slammed. The owner of the fist was thrown and crashed into the ground. Is this New York? My portal was supposed to open near Tony, and this is Hulk? Revered Lion scanned the scene. Broken streets, people fleeing. Men in dark tactical teams carried civilians to safety. From a street corner strode a black giant, over 10 meters tall. It took only 2 steps to reach him. Of course it was Tony. He must have updated his suit again. A black hulking armor with blue glowing rings on each wrist, elbow, shoulder, knee, and ankle. It looked like the 10 rings powering a suit fused with some kind of symbiotic armor. Revered Lion wondered, is this a Mark 8? Roar! The Hulk slammed into the ground, roared, and pushed through the rubble. He reached toward Revered Lion with an outstretched hand. Big guy, I don't recommend you do that, Revered Lion said, gripping the Hulk's thumb to stop the hand. He judged the force. His arm grip strength was almost 1,300 tons. Is this a rage state? What did Tony do to him? He flicked his wrist, using technique to throw the Hulk back into the pavement. He didn't stop. He raised his hand and struck, then raised it again. After being slammed more than 10 times, Hulk's roar didn't fade. If anything, his anger grew. Revered Lion frowned. Single-arm strength was already over 2,000 tons. This Hulk wasn't very intelligent. His fury was pure. Would he just keep getting stronger? During the Avengers 3 era, after spending time with Sakar's people, Hulk's intelligence had increased and his emotions had deepened. He'd even had conflicts with Banner. But this Hulk had recently been born. His intelligence wasn't much above a beast's. Unless he was beaten to the point of unbearable pain, he wouldn't calm down easily. Sorry, Revered Lion muttered. I hope what happens next won't scar your young mind too badly. Then he grabbed Hulk and pulled him close. While the green giant bellowed, Revered Lion pressed down on Hulk's shoulder and began to punch his right cheek in rapid succession. 1 punch, 2 punches, each blow so fast it left after images. He controlled the power, so each strike was about 10,000 tons, but the speed made them hit like falling missiles. 2 seconds later, with his skull battered, Hulk lost consciousness. Revered Lion released him. Banner collapsed to the ground and slowly shifted back into Bruce Banner. Revered Lion? Revered Lion, you're back! Tony arrived, crossing the street in 2 great strides. In those 2 steps, Revered Lion had already dealt with Hulk. What did you do? Tony blurted, still mid-sprint. He stared at the unconscious Banner. You just got back and already beat my opponent? I wanted to have a good sparring match. Revered Lion picked Banner up off the ground. I was about to ask you the same. What did you do to make him this enraged? He looked around. And what are you, the new S.H.I.E.L.D. director, protecting? What happened to this street? You actually know it was Hulk? Tony glanced about. Don't worry, all the damage will be covered by your superheroes company. It's already been announced. People here are thrilled when Hulk smashes cars. They can get new ones. By the way, it's not S.H.I.E.L.D. director, the Avengers director, Revered Lion corrected. Any director is fine, but this street alone looks like it'll cost over $100 million. Is your company really that rich? Of course, Tony said. Your Superman merch and my Iron Man merch sold out everywhere, and the movie's a blockbuster. Revenues are through the roof. Movie? Revered Lion blinked. What movie? And about Hulk? You'd better explain clearly what happened in the last 10 days. Revered Lion felt a flicker of unease. He'd scanned the entire world with his mental powers just last night. Tony had been diligently working at the Avengers base. How had everything turned into Godzilla vs. King Kong in a single day? Let's start with the big guy from a little while ago, Tony said. That's a long story, and actually, it concerns you too. He caught himself mid-sentence. Interrupting for a moment, Natasha cut in, stepping closer. It doesn't only concern Leon. It concerns you as well, Mr. Stark, doesn't it? She glanced at him expectantly. Come on, Natasha, you tell me. Tony replied, smirking. Leon's attention drifted to the Yelena sisters who had moved to his side. He began to explain the Hulk's origin. It went back several months, to when Leon had destroyed the Eagle Nation base in Afghanistan. Whether it was his actions there or his disregard for military warnings when he crossed the border, the attack had inflamed warmongers inside the Eagle Nation's military. One man in particular, Lieutenant General Thaddeus Ross, reacted at once. He ordered the military's super soldier program accelerated at any cost, intending to develop something to counterbalance Superman. A month later, Leon demonstrated what it meant to withstand a nuclear blast and to be a walking catastrophe, and that put a serious damper on Ross's ambitions. Still, the super soldier program kept moving forward. During their relentless search, they finally tracked down a once-escaped test subject, Bruce Banner. Dr. Banner was a brilliant physicist with 7 doctorates. In 2003, while part of a military experiment, he'd been exposed to massive gamma radiation and transformed into the Hulk. In the chaos, he'd unintentionally harmed his girlfriend, Betty Ross, and her father, General Ross. Banner fled the base and spent years on the run, but he was the target of a nationwide hunt. Fearing that Ross would exploit the monstrous side of him to wage war, Banner abandoned everything and hid in Brazil for 5 years. In 2006, when Stark Industries rolled out a new communications device, Banner used one to send one last message to Betty, and then he disappeared again. No one heard from him for years, until just a few days ago, when the military finally picked up a new lead. They contacted Stark Industries. Through data tracing and big data tracking, they located Banner working in a small factory in Brazil. What followed was a frantic chain of pursuit, rampage, escape, and re-pursuit. The military, taking advantage of a careless moment, remotely sedated Banner with a massive tranquilizer dose and hauled him back to New York. Betty, who hadn't been in contact with Banner for years, discovered what her father was planning. Still in love with Banner, she stole General Ross's ID, broke into the base, and rescued him. The reunited couple fled into the city and tried to hail a taxi to get out of town. They were surrounded again. Among the troops sent to intercept them was a soldier who'd been contaminated by Hulk blood in earlier operations, Emil Blonsky. He'd been a decorated soldier, but after exposure to Hulk blood, he'd become a towering, brutal monster the military labeled the Abomination. He lived up to the name. Once he attacked, he didn't discriminate, and even many soldiers were killed by him. With no other option, Banner transformed to protect Betty, and Hulk and Abomination tore through the streets of New York. They fought the length of the block. Cars were tossed like toys and used as blunt instruments. Then the sky filled with armored operatives. The Men in Black and Iron Man, alerted to the chaos, arrived on the scene. Dozens of black armored soldiers dropped in and quickly took control of the perimeter. The street was a war zone. There were no undamaged vehicles left. The operatives split their tasks. Some evacuated civilians. Others went straight for the 2 monsters. A team of 4 slid along the ground to strike at Hulk's and Abomination's joints and knock them down. Then 20 more moved in, using joint locks to restrain limbs. Each of the operatives had a strength rating north of 40 tons, enough that even individually they could contend with the monsters. Together, they were formidable. 3 operatives gripped a single Hulk arm. Both beasts were held on the ground, able only to howl, and even that was suppressed. As soon as they opened their mouths, the operatives forced tranquilizers down their throats. Abomination was incapacitated quickly and fell into a stupor. Hulk, however, was stubborn. Despite being dosed with who knew how much sedative, he forced his eyes open and bellowed, "Hulk!" That's when Tony arrived in a new suit of armor, circling above and taking in the scene with a showman's grin. "Ooh-hoo, look who dragged himself out of whatever lab. This green baby here. Is that the Hulk?" "Nice work, ladies. You've got it handled. Leave the rest to me," Tony announced. "Wait, Mr. Stark. He's almost," an agent began, trying to warn him. Tony ignored the warning, landed on Hulk's forehead, and started punching. "Sleep, sleep, sleep," he chanted, pounding the broad brow as if trying to lull a child at an arcade machine. His punches were heavy, 100-ton class, and instead of calming Hulk, they made the Green Giant angrier. The knocks woke him fully. With a roar, Hulk tore free of the operative's restraints, ripped off the soldiers clinging to him, and slammed his fists into the pavement as he rose. He fixed his reddened, furious gaze on the black and gold Iron Man. Oversized Shrek, did I interrupt your nap? Shall we start over? Tony said, feeling the pressure of those eyes. My brother taught me a few lullabies. What style do you prefer? Full rockabye or something more violent? I should warn you, I can't cradle you like a baby. Hulk answered with a savage roar. Whoa, honestly, you have a bit of bad breath, Tony muttered, and then raised his hand to fire an energy blast into Hulk's face. The blast pushed Hulk back, but didn't even scratch him. Hulk's eyes flared redder. Hulk swung and knocked Tony hard. The armored genius flew through the air and smashed into an apartment building, obliterating the living room of a family inside. Tony pushed himself out from under debris. As he was about to get up, he noticed a family of 3 frozen at a dining table just beyond the hole he'd made. He blinked, half awkward. Sorry, I forgot to knock when I came in, he said, forcing a laugh. Is that basa fish for lunch? Looks good, I won't be staying, though. He shuffled toward the gaping hole. Someone will come to compensate you for the… Whoa! A massive green hand shot through the opening, grabbed Tony, and pulled him out of the apartment. Big guy, I was almost finished explaining the compensation. Now I'm a little angry. Hulk swung him around like a rag doll. Tony's thrusters screamed, and he jockeyed to break free, finally ripping his way out of Hulk's grip as rocket power flared.